I'm going to call the Select Board meeting to order for Monday, November 25th, 2024, and note that we will be going into executive session and we will not return before 6 p.m. If I could get a motion.
Jeff, did you say you wanted to read all clerk?
I don't have a problem doing it.
No,
Pete,
no.
if you'd like me to.
I thought I heard you say that.
My arm's loose.
Move to enter executive session for item A pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the town, which is 5C Street Extension. Also, item B, executive session pursuant to provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss potential litigation by the town if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Christopher Wise versus Harwich Planning Board, Bonsall Superior Court, CA number 2172CV00239. And item C, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Mass COP Local 446.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Pete?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. Evening, I'm going to call the Select Board meeting back to order. We were in executive session earlier this evening, and we had no action on item A and B. We took action on item C to be announced at a later date. If you would, I will, as required by open meeting law, you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. Hearing nobody, please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm going to go to Chief Considine for public comments and announcements.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Powers. Tonight's, for me, a very proud night as chief. I can't be more prouder of this department, of our town, of our fire department, and you'll see why tonight. I'm just going to ask the shift to come up that was working that night. So again, I'm extremely proud to be before you this evening to recognize the work of last Monday night's evening shift, as well as the shift, but in particular two officers, Officer T.J. Griffiths and Officer Jessica Ferreira. First, I'd like to thank the board in particular for all your texts and your phone calls. From me to pass on to the officers your thanks. It is greatly appreciated. For our community who reached out to us, I can't be more grateful. For the members of the Harwich Fire Department, as you know, it's no secret we have a great relationship with our fire department, and we work well with our fire department. And I just want to thank all of you. And I know there's some people here that was on that call last Monday night as well. Thank you. Particular thanks to the members of the police department. As you know, and the comments that were made, we have an outstanding police department. And what you'll see tonight when I read the commendations, this just proves it. Great teamwork and a great group of men and women. Thank you. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the victims of this crash. Last Friday night, I called both mothers of the two most serious injured victims in this. They were both up in Boston still. Both relayed their thanks to both the fire department and the police department. Although they have a very long road ahead, they're on the road to recovery. So that's really important to recognize here. So the first presentation I want to make is to our shift. And I'm just going to read the shift accommodation. November 18th, 2024, evening shift. Officer in charge, Mark Holmes. Officer Thomas Griffiths. Officer Jessica Ferreira. Officer Scott McFarland. And telecommunicator Diane Nicholson. On November 18, 2004, the evening shift responded to a motor vehicle crash where a speeding vehicle crashed after leaving the roadway and caught on fire. The officers of the evening shift acted in an efficient and effective manner to provide aid to multiple victims of the crash, along with the crash reconstruction investigation. The officers and dispatcher of the evening shift all displayed outstanding teamwork and great communication. Their efforts are consistent with the principles, values, and mission of the Harwich Police Department. Presented this 25th day in November 2024, Kevin M. Considine, Chief of Police. And I'd like to give this to Officer Mark Holmes. Again, thank you to our entire shift. Thank you. All right, at this time, I would like to specifically recognize two officers who were instrumental in this case. We have department awards that are not given out a lot. One of these awards haven't been given out in about 13 years, and I think that speaks volume to how important these awards are to recognize officers and the criteria to reach to be presented with one of these awards. The first award is the Departmental Medal of Meritorious Service, presented to Officer Jessica Ferreira. This official commendation is in recognition of your extraordinary efforts and bravery on November 18th, 2024. On November 18th, 2024, you witnessed a speeding vehicle pass by your location on Queen Anne Road. A short time later, you arrived on location after the vehicle had rolled multiple times and was on fire. You immediately ran towards the burning vehicle. You observed 4 victims outside the vehicle and offered aid to all of them. You insisted in pulling one victim away from the burning vehicle, and you were then alerted that there was one additional victim on the other side of the vehicle, face down, requiring immediate attention. Without hesitation and disregarding significant risk to yourself, you pulled the victim away from the burning vehicle, fearing that it was going to explode. Due to your decisive actions, both seriously injured victims will recover. Your actions involving operational risk, in which extraordinary efforts were used, are consistent with the principles, values, and mission of the Harwich Police Department. For this, you are awarded the Harwich Police Department Meritorious Service Medal. One thing I forgot to mention is these officers don't want to be up here tonight. I know this. They're very humbled, and they just like to go out and do their job and protect this community, but they deserve what they're getting tonight. TJ? This is the Departmental Award Medal for Distinguished Service. Officer Thomas J. Griffiths. This official commendation is in recognition of your extraordinary efforts and bravery on November 18th, 2004, which resulted in saving a life. On November 18th, 2004, you witnessed a speeding vehicle pass by your location on Queen Anne Road. A short time later, you observed the vehicle off the road, which had rolled multiple times and was on fire. You exited your cruiser and retrieved your fire extinguisher. 4 victims were outside the vehicle, and you were then alerted that there was one additional victim trapped in the back seat. Without any hesitation, you knocked down enough flames in order to reach the victim. Disregarding significant risk to yourself, You reached into the back seat and freed the trapped victim and pulled her out of the vehicle. As the vehicle became fully engulfed, you moved the victim away from the vehicle to safety. Due to severe injuries, you were able to use your high level of training to apply a tourniquet to the victim's leg. Due to your decisive actions, you saved the life of another. You demonstrated the true meaning of bravery and dedication to duty. And for this, you are awarded the Harwich Police Department Distinguished Service Medal. And I want to say one thing about TJ with this is there is no doubt in my mind, or anybody that knows this case, if these two officers were not on Queen Anne Road observing traffic, we would have a fatality. TJ did save the life of this young girl. Again, thank you all. Thank you for this opportunity, Madam Chair and the members of the board. Greatly appreciated. Thank you all for coming out and honoring these officers tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And we're so lucky to have all of you. So I just want to thank all of you for coming and acknowledging what great officers and fire department personnel we have in town. We're so blessed to have them, and we have 2 young lives still here on this planet because of the amazing work of these 2 officers tonight. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts and the community. Thanks. On to public comments and announcements for anybody else in the audience. I owe you the Santa suit still, too.
I was gonna say. Carolyn Carey, Community Center Director, thank you. Who wants to follow that?
I know.
I mean, really,
It's a
this
tough
is,
one.
so, how do you go? I'm just gonna do it. The Community Center would like to announce some of their December events. On December 4th, from 6 to 8 p.m., we'll be holding a holiday concert. It is free. There's music, dancing. It is pretty popular. The next one is Cocoa and Curtains, and I'm announcing this. We are doing a hot cocoa bar and then taking a trolley over to the Junior Theater where we're watching a performance. And I was going to come up here and tell you all about this event, but when we put this flyer out, it filled up in 15 minutes. So we are currently working on doing another one because it was clearly a popular event that people wanted to go to. And we would really like to thank all of the people who helped make that possible. The tickets and the trolley and the hot cocoa was all provided for us. So we're very, 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 very grateful. Then you can come grab a bow. You walk into the community center. There's a box. Whether you are an adult or a child or however you identify, you reach inside that box and pull out a bow and you'll win a prize. There are letters to a good friend of ours, Santa. You can drop, we have the very large, the post office just delivered the mailbox that goes directly to him. And my understanding is that Santa writes you back. So you want to get your letters in. We are doing the Ugly Sweater Decorating Contest on December 19th. It is free, and there are prizes given out. I think Reagan Wilda holds the title, but it's a challenge. Come on over and try and take that away. There is a Winter Solstice Drum Circle program on December 20th at 4 p.m. And we are doing New Year's Eve crafts, which was very popular, from 3 to 5, and we will set the clocks back for the young adults and make it midnight at 6 p.m. So the last thing I wanted to announce, all those events, of course, are free. Everyone is welcome. They are all located on our website, but also the town band concert is December 10th at the community center and very popular for people. So appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Lots of great things. Anybody else for public comments and announcements? I can't talk. No? Nobody else? Okay. We will go on to our public hearing. Can I get a reading of the notice?
You can, Madam Chair, I just wasn't ready.
Oh, okay. Take your time.
I was writing my letter to Santa.
Madam Chair, if I could, if it helps, this is your annual public hearing, but also a joint meeting with the Board of Assessors.
Thank you.
So they will have to go through their effort to come to order as well.
Madam Chair, the Harwich Select Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 25, 2024, no earlier than 6 p.m. during their regularly scheduled meeting. The hearing will be in the Don B. Griffin Room located at Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, for the purpose of deciding whether all property shall be taxed at the same rate for fiscal year 2025 as set forth in Chapter 40, Section 56 of the Mass General Laws. All members of the public having an interest in this topic are cordially invited to attend the public hearing and provide information and testimony relevant to this matter. Remote participation will also be available. Please see the posted agenda for dial-in information. Signed, Julie E. Kavanaugh, the Chair, Jeffrey Handel, Vice Chair, Pete Pykarski, Clerk, Michael D. McCaskill, Donald F. Howell, Cape Cod Chronicle, November 7, 2024.
Thank you.
You want to open up the public
Yeah.
hearing? Madam Chair, I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I also call the second meeting of the day of the Board of Assessors to order.
I'd like to make a motion that we
We're good.
open our meeting.
We're open. Second, and there's two of us here tonight. Unfortunately, our third member, Mr. Jay Kavanaugh, is at the ER at the moment. He's not feeling well, so I'm sorry he couldn't be with us. I am joined this evening by our assessing director, Ms. Carleen Jones, and I do want to acknowledge in the audience Madison Gribben, who is our assistant assessor, and I don't see Dan. Our third member of the staff could not be with us tonight. And we're here again, as we are every year, to discuss how we tax this community. And we, at our earlier meeting today, voted unanimously to recommend to you that all property in this community be taxed at a residential factor of 1, and not to grant either an open space residential or small commercial exemption. And before I go any further, did you all receive the packets in your email for tonight's meeting?
We did.
And if anyone does not have them, we have extra copies here. And Mr. McCoskey, you've heard this in years past, but welcome back to the board, so you can
Thank
hear
you.
it again.
Thank you.
There are many reasons that the Board of Assessors comes to this conclusion in making this recommendation to you. It is your choice to decide how the properties are taxed in this community. We only make a recommendation to you. Mr. Nightingale, a number of years ago, said, we need to do a deep dive into this, because people had called asking, why can't we do a residential exemption for this community? And we took a couple of meetings to investigate why it would be beneficial and why it would not be beneficial. And there are a couple of reasons why. There are only 4 communities on the Cape that have a residential exemption. 3 Outer Cape communities, Wellfleet, Truro, and Provincetown, with an average year-round population of 3,000 members. The other town is Barnstable, so 49,000 year-round residents, but they have a huge industrial and commercial base that we do not have. And the biggest issue for us, just about 10% of this community is commercial, industrial, or mixed use. The rest is residential. So if a shift were to be made for a residential exemption, it's not going to impact all of the community. In fact, the break-even point is just over $1 million. 2 of you and your board will be impacted. You would not qualify for a residential exemption. In fact, 19% of our community would not qualify for that residential exemption because they are assessed at over $1,001,000. There's not enough of a base to absorb it. To those who have said in the past, well, we should do something for second homeowners to see that they pay more, and they do. Non-residents pay a personal property tax every year, and that equates to about 10% that they're paying additional in taxes to this community. We feel, as we have for many, many years, that it's not appropriate to have any of these exemptions. So we would recommend to you tonight that you have motions before you, and I'm happy to share them with you. If you don't have it, I have it in a summary sheet, we recommend to vote a residential factor of 1. We recommend not to grant an open space exemption. We recommend not to grant a residential exemption. We recommend not to grant a small commercial exemption. And if anyone needs a copy of those to make the motion,
I have it.
thank you. We would ask that you do so. Before that, we would be happy to answer any questions about the process that we go through, the reasoning behind our recommendations, and any other questions that may become before our assessing director.
Thank you, Richard. Michael, you have any questions?
I would defer to the public, and then I'll make a motion to close the public hearing if
Oh,
nobody's
thank
here
you,
to speak.
yeah. Anybody in the public have anything to say? Hearing nobody.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Madam Chair,
Yes, thank you.
I move to vote a residential factor of 1. Do we want to do these individually, or can you take it individually?
Please.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I just may want to know which 2 board members wouldn't qualify.
He wants to be,
Tell you after the meeting, Mr. McCarthy.
And just,
he wants to be invited over for the holidays.
Be the one end of the table.
and I know it's not this end, anyway. No, I appreciate what you folks do, and I had the privilege years ago, I believe it was Mr. Hemian at the time.
Correct.
Who walked me through this entire process, because I was the one sitting here saying, what the hell are we doing that for? And then he quickly educated me that the impact is negligible. So in any event, thank you for your time, thank you for your recommendation, and I'm looking at the right end of the table.
Let me sit back.
Madam Chair, just can I respond? Mr. Hemian was a mentor of mine, and he brought me onto this board 20 years ago. And he was tremendous. He was one of the last few who served as member of the Board of Assessors, of the Board of the Health, and Board of Selectmen. He was one of the last full-time members of the Board of Selectmen. So I appreciate hearing his name. He's very near and dear to my heart.
Great guy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don?
No, other than to note, as we get into that part, we've been down this road a lot of times, and we've got a minuscule commercial property tax base, so this is the only sane way of going.
Jeff?
Thank you for all your work.
And Michael, you already spoke, so. All in favor?
Aye.
I move to not grant an open space exemption.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I move, and I'm an aye. I move not to grant a residential exemption.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I
5-0.
move to not grant a small commercial exemption.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
Madam Chair, before we end, I would, we're not doing our annual meeting with you as we normally do. We bring everything together in one meeting in November. But I want to remind people that the gift that the town gives at Christmas every year is a tax bill. And in the last week of December, you'll be receiving a tax bill.
Along with coal.
And in that tax bill, you'll be receiving for the first time your new assessed value for your property. And there are those who disagree with assessments, and if they do, they have a mechanism to question it through the form of an abatement application. And for those who go south or elsewhere for the winter, we need to remind them that the abatement application forms are posted on our website, and you have 30 days from receipt of the tax bill to have that application come into our office. There are no exceptions for late filings. And actually, in the last couple of years, as this market, real estate market has exploded on the Cape and values have gone up, we've been anticipating substantial number of abatements. We haven't been receiving them. And I want to acknowledge the work of the director and her staff. They've worked diligently with our contractor to see that we keep our values in place. So I want to be able to publicly acknowledge the work of the director and her staff for the work they're doing for this community.
Thank you, and we thank you all for all the work you're doing. It's a lot of land and a lot of bills, and thank you.
And Madam Chair, I will, sorry.
If I could, Madam Chair, before you just continue this matter, there's the procedural matter that the assessing director has referenced in her memo, and that would be a motion to authorize the chair
Oh, right.
to sign all relevant documents on behalf of the board.
Thank you.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the director has that for you.
Thank you.
And before we leave, I would ask one more indulgence, if I can, is to take out of order on your agenda tonight, item J,
Oh, I was just going to say that, thank you.
if you could, because
Yes.
we've got staff here, both with children in daycare,
No,
so
that's,
would like to be able to get them home at a reasonable hour tonight, because I
Thank you.
understand you have a packed agenda, so.
yes, and thank you, Richard, because I was just going to say that, so we will take item J, and we're going to go ahead and hold that item. Michael, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I just asked the chair at the beginning of the meeting to hold this for another week or two. There's some information that we should have in the packet to discuss progress on the last contract, and then some future asks to go along with this conversation.
So you will not be addressing it tonight, so the staff,
Everybody
Can
can
leave.
go home, right?
not I, Madam Chair, but, and I would ask a motion to close our meeting.
I'd like to make a motion that we close our meeting.
It is seconded.
Aye.
Aye. The session's meeting is duly closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And one other comment I want to make on our agenda is we are going to take item D out of order. We will follow, item D will follow item A under new business. I just want to let anyone in the audience know that as well. Okay, so we can go on to our next public hearing.
Madam Chair, notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that application has been made to this board for an annual general on-premise wines and malt liquor license for Witchmere Harbor Functions Limited Partnership, EBA Witchmere Beach Club. Christopher Clifton, sorry, Christopher. Colwitz?
Colwitz, there you go.
Manager of the following described premises located at 23 Snow Inn Road, Harwich Port, Mass. 02646. A wood frame structure with 5 entrances, 2 dining rooms, 2 kitchens, 4 lavatories. Deck and boardwalk adjoining channel on ground level. Deck adjoining second level walking area on east side. First level cocktail lounge with bar and service bar off kitchen. Liquor storage and cocktail lounge, kitchen and service bar. The Select Board will hold a hearing on the application on Monday, November 25, 2024, no earlier than 6 p.m. in the Griffin Room at the Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street, at which time all interested parties are cordially invited to attend. Remote participation is available. Please see the posted agenda for dial-in information. Select Board, Local Licensing Authority, published Cape Cod Chronicle, November 7, 2024.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, good evening. How are
Good
you?
evening. Hi, I'm Marion Rose from Singer and Dennis Fort. The application's straightforward. We're here to answer any questions that you all may have.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to go to board members with that. Michael?
Madam Chair, I defer again to the public and then make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you for the reminder. Second reminder. Anybody in the public want to speak to this item on our agenda? Seeing nobody,
Move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
all in favor?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve a new application for a Chapter 138, Section 12 Annual General On-Premise Wines and Malt Liquor License for Witchmere Harbor Functions Limited Partnership, DBA Witchmere Beach Club, 23 Snow Inn Road,
Second.
as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion? Michael?
Just have one, the application was perfect, and everybody knows Witchmere, and you've been great partners, and I'm
Thank
sure
you.
you'll continue to be.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Jeff?
I have nothing.
Dawn?
Oh, Good luck.
So wait, yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
5-0. So thank you, thanks very much.
Go to the side.
Good luck with everything. Yeah, no, you're right. Okay.
Madam Chair, what's coming around is 2 originals. Apparently, there are 3 signature lines, so we'd just be looking for 2 of you to go to the right.
Okay.
That is on the form. Thank you.
To the right.
And I believe you took the vote.
We did, 5-0.
Thank you.
On to the weekly briefing.
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, so it begins. Weekly briefing, as you may recall, and we can certainly modify the language if you'd like, but just about 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago this time, weekly briefings were related to the Phase 2 sewer construction So we are beginning now weekly briefings on the Phase 3 wastewater extension. That's the sewer construction. And notice is now given that, as we've talked about, Contract 2W, construction will begin, or is scheduled to begin on that, on December 16th, 2024, and the construction will begin at Chestnut Lane in East Harwich. So really, the impact is limited to that area, because that's where the process will begin, and if you're familiar with that area, I believe it dead ends. Regardless, we'll be doing these regularly as we get information from the construction vendor, Robert B. Hour, and that's the weekly briefing.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Any questions from board members on any of that? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and Don and Pete, I think you two wanted to hold the minutes from October 30th, so I would just ask you to send any revisions to staff.
Motion to approve the consent agenda, meeting minutes from November 4, 2024, and November 12, 2024.
Second.
I just have a couple comments on, and my things are just minor changes. I can share
Which one?
staff where there was just a couple typos that I can relay. And then on the November 12th, I think we've got a misspelling on, Megan, your name's spelled wrong. So on page 3 of, November 12th, and then same thing on page 4, Brian Albee, it's Albee, it's Abby on here. And then we have, on page 6, it refers to Mr. Libby, but I think it's supposed to be Mr. Hooper in 2 spots. I don't believe Sean was at that meeting.
These are for the 12th?
12th, yep. And I'll share these, but just for the public.
Madam Chair, we heard a motion to approve. We didn't hear a second.
I
Ye-
seconded.
Yeah,
One or the other, rest of them.
and so with those minor revisions, I just want to point those out. So, any other comments from anybody else? So all in favor?
Aye.
Next, new business. Where's John? Hi, John. Come join us at the table. Amy? How are you?
Good, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
I asked, Amy wanted to stick around for this, so,
No.
because obviously she's going to play an important role in my transition. Anyhow, I wanted to let the board members know that I am slowly transitioning out of the practice of law and specifically municipal law. And so come the end of this year, I am going to reduce the number of towns that I'm going to be responsible for, basically in half. And I am going to represent a few other towns through 2025, and then I'm going to be retired. So, and of course, we've talked about this, but Amy has played such a large role in representing the town. We thought, and Amy graciously agreed, that she would be a fine replacement for me as the principal contact attorney here in Harwich. Now, if you've ever seen I guess it's The Godfather.
Uh-oh.
Are we going to the mattresses?
You know, just when you think you're out, they drag you back in.
Yeah, but the car blew up in that, so.
Yeah, so that doesn't really work. But anyhow, I've assured Joe, and I want to assure all of you, that just because I'm stepping back from a lead role in Harwich, I am always going to be available for you.
Thank
If
you.
Amy has a conflict, for example, if there's a conflict with town meeting and I can cover it, I will do that. If any of the board members want to call me and talk through something, I'm happy to do that.
Count on it.
Good, Michael, I'll look forward to those conversations. Oh, my God, he's calling me again. But in any event, I want to just tell you all how much I appreciate the support I've received. Harwich is a tough town, you know, and it's a tough town in some really, really good ways. Because of the complexity of the legal issues, it has been a challenge over the years, but I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I really appreciate all of the support I've gotten from all the members of the select board through the years.
I don't think we could thank you enough for all the hard work you've given us and all the advice. And so I'll speak for myself, but I think I can speak for this board in saying thank you so much for all of the time and effort that you've given Harwich, and we really do appreciate it. And you're leaving us in very good hands, because Amy is the same. She's equally qualified, and we're grateful to have her as well.
So you will not see so much of me, but the rest of the team is not going anywhere. And as a matter of fact, Lauren wanted me to tell you all that, you know, she would welcome any phone calls, any issues that come up if you want to talk. I call her the big gal, but, you know, if you want to call Lauren, she'd be happy to help out. And obviously, Amy is there for you 100%.
That's great. Thank you. I'm going to go to board members. Michael?
Is it appropriate to put a motion on the floor not to accept?
Yeah. And I think we'd all like that to be a winning motion, but.
Certainly we're in
Fancy.
capable hands with Amy, but I can't thank you enough. 10 years I've been working with you, and it's been quite amazing. I will continue to bother you, and look forward. Now you can pacify me on the beach and say, don't talk law, and don't talk Harwich, North Beach on the weekend. So, thank you, John.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate everything you've done for this town.
Jeff?
John, you never returned my phone calls in the first place, so I'm certainly not going to call you in retirement. Make sure when he calls you, it's on his dime and not the town's dime.
Definitely do that.
I've only worked with you for just shy of 2 years. You've been fantastic, responsive, and brilliant. And I know we're in great hands moving forward with Amy, and I wish you the best.
Thank you very
You're great.
much.
Thank you.
Don?
Well, John, I could say with a fair amount of certainty, as a counterpoint to what Michael says, that if you're retiring, then I won't be bothering you anymore. So with that, congratulations, and I wish you the best.
Thanks, Don.
Pete?
I'm going to wish you the best as well. In fact, you know, it was a large gap of time between when I first met you and now that I'm here again, but nonetheless, I wish you a lot of enjoyment. Clearly, Harwich didn't make the cut for your final year, but that's all right. We won't take it personally.
I had to, you know.
No, we're fine. We appreciate, we are in good hands.
I had to have a favorite child, and it
personally,
wasn't us.
I hope the board stops calling you folks, to be honest with you. So, but that's another matter. But no, all the best.
Great, thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you again, and, you know, I hope you get to really, truly enjoy your retirement at the end of 2025.
Oh, I'm planning on it,
Good.
definitely. And if I see you in the Stop and Shop or around town, you know.
Yeah, you can
be
update
a
us on the
stranger.
cruises that you've gone on, right?
That's right.
Your gift is parked outside. Just enjoy it.
Madam Chair, could I beg the indulgence
Yes.
of the board to add to the record?
Of course.
Thank you. See, you're not going to get off easy, John. I want to pick up on what Pete said. I took it very personally that we didn't make the final cut, so to speak. But having said that, I can't add any better than what the members said, but I would just like to share that I first had the opportunity to work with John when I was in Wellfleet. And when my boss wanted to introduce me to this attorney from KP Law, I said, oh, who is it? I know them all. And I had not yet met the dean, and certainly the dean of Cape Cod Attorneys. And so I could go on and on. The board won't let me, and we should get out of here at a reasonable hour. But it's not lost to me the times that you and I worked together here in all of the events, COVID and what have you. One of my fondest memories will be standing out on a football field, because that's where town meetings were.
Yep.
And getting your guidance and your support. I agree with what the members said. You can certainly get information on the cruises, but you'd be missing if you didn't ask John for the recipes. Every wish of happiness and joy to you as you go forward. I know that Amy already knows the big shoes that she has to fill, but we all know she's capable. Sorry to hear your announcement, but thank you for it.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you all.
She is already bringing candy to town meetings, so that's covered.
We recognize that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
But I'm
Thanks
sure
again.
I'll see you again, so.
Yes,
But
and thank
so
you.
much.
And thank you, Amy, for staying as well.
I look forward to it.
Okay, so I'll go on to item D, taking it out of order, the review and approval of conservation restrictions at 0 Route 28.
Madam Chair?
Yeah?
I move that we approve two conservation restrictions. First, 0 Route 28, Harwich Map 79, Parcel C2, and 0 Birch Drive, Harwich Map 35, Parcel E5, as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any questions? This could be very easy, Tom.
Sorry we're so rough on,
Chair, I didn't even have to answer any questions.
Right?
sorry we've been so rough on you.
Nothing? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
I just appreciate Michael Locke being on the call, but these are always put together so well that there's really no questions.
Yes,
Right,
and the
thank
fact
you.
of the matter is that Michael is the one who puts them together so well, not yours truly.
That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you all very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Okay, back to item B.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
move that we approve 2 Select Board holidays, 12 PM closure for town offices on Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2024, and New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
The discussion is on my end. Pete, I will not be reading the readings or anything else. I'm just trying to give you a little break.
Doing a great job.
Just to make it clear that it's not our holiday, that we're not taking off.
I beg to differ, because I am not working that day.
I have your phone number.
Any other? Pete, sorry.
Yeah, I'll be the outlier here. I'm going to vote against it only because of December 31st, to be honest with you. I don't want it to be construed as any disrespect to town staff or the fact that I don't think they do a great job. I just don't see a need to close early on December 31st, so I'll be voting against it, but thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
You can't vote.
I know how to recount.
Said all-
Yeah.
Opposed?
Opposed, sorry.
So 4-1.
Just a habit, I guess.
501.
5-0, exactly.
Is split personality.
Yep, trust me, it's there.
All right. C. The,
So, Madam Chair, we'll be joined in a moment by our Director of Planning and Community Development, Christine Flynn, regarding the housing production plan.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm very excited to be here. As part of the local comprehensive plan, the housing production plan is a vitally important planning document for the town, particularly to leverage state and federal funding for affordable housing projects and programs. The HPP provides the town with quantifiable data relative to the housing needs of our community, as well as the demographic and economic profiles for the town. The HPP outlines targeted goals, objectives for the town as to how best to address Harwich's housing needs for the next 5 years and into the future. Since the last HPP in 2006, the town has accomplished a great deal in addressing the housing concerns for the town, including its zoning for multifamily, two-family, mixed-use housing, as well as allowing accessory dwelling units as a matter of right. The town created an affordable housing advocate position and also established a municipal affordable housing trust fund. And more importantly, the town is moving forward to create 60 units of rental housing at 456 Queen Anne Road. And as part of the local comprehensive plan, the housing production plan took part in extensive community engagement as part of this planning document. We did community survey with over 1,100 responses from members of our community, 2 community vision and planning workshops, as well as a housing stakeholders meeting that was hosted by the Select Board this past summer. The priority needs include year-round and rental housing, but particularly for workforce housing, in addition to senior and special needs housing. And one other aspect that was encouraged by the housing production plan was housing rehabilitation, and to look towards housing rehabilitation programs and funding. The targeted goals over the next 5 years is to create 33 housing units per year, with 80% dedicated to rental housing, in addition to 20% dedicated to homeownership opportunities. And to accomplish these housing goals, the housing production plan has laid out many resources and tools that the town can consider for implementation, as well as initiatives that have been supported by the state, particularly relative to the recently adopted Affordable Homes Act. And again, I can't state this enough. This is a vitally important document for the town, and I want to acknowledge the great work by our consultant Karen Sonnenberg, as well as the local planning committee. This has been a great collaborative effort as part of the local comprehensive plan, and I hope that you can adopt this, approve this plan, and we can submit it to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities for their approval as well.
Great, thank you. I'll open it up to board members. Any questions from board members? Jeff?
Well, if I could, and thank you, Christine. As the liaison to this local planning committee, I personally would like to say thank you to Garrett, Margot, Peter, James, Joyce, Ed, Barbara, Brian, David, Bernadette, Mary, Karen, Sharon from Ty and Bond, and yourself. The amount of work, the amount of effort that you all have put into crafting not only the local comprehensive plan, but the housing production plan, the open space plan, has been nothing short of remarkable, and I think the public needs to know that and understand that and respect all the work you guys have done. It's really been outstanding. The data in this plan is truly robust. I mean, I think we all know what we're dealing with, but again, to see it in print is something else. The community outreach, that is so vital to this, and I remember when I was vice chair of the local planning committee, Joyce really began the process with creating a strategic plan of how all of Harwich can be represented in these documents, and I think you all have done a fantastic job with that. Strong ideas. I've watched your meetings. I've been to a couple of your meetings, and I just can't say enough about your process, about your commitment, about your effort, and now we're starting to see the fruits of the labor, so thank you.
Thank you, and it's really a team effort. I can't.
It is a phenomenal team,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of work has gone in, a lot of time, too.
Yeah.
Michael?
Would echo Selectman Handler's comments about the committee, yourself and everybody involved did a great job. It's eye-opening the amount of information that's in here. I can't support it. That's the negative part of this. If you look at page 7 of your report, of the report, it says, fourth, the lack of community support for new development, including affordable or attainable units, has created roadblocks for some development opportunities. And then it goes on, page 147 of our packet, is a sell job for Pine Oaks Village 4. And we've been talking to the community about Pine Oaks Village 4 and the detriment to the community that it could cause. We have no factual information from them whatsoever. Matter of fact, rather than hold public hearings and ask the community what they want, they've hired a marketing firm from day one to try and push their project through. The community's got several things, and in this housing production plan, we're being asked as a board to ignore those people, to ignore the people with concerns, to ignore the fact that every single department in this town said that there was going to be an increase in cost. And quite frankly, we shouldn't be using our housing production plan, and I hope the board rejects it, to sell Pine Oaks Village 4 just because they took the time to come before and sell this to the community. There's no doubt in my mind, and the information in here is compelling on why we need it, but the community has supported this year, Bank Street, Route 124, the old Marsh Line property, West Harwich, in the millions to the taxpayer, from the taxpayers of this town for affordable housing. And the more I read this, and the geniuses that are working on this on the state level, and the politicians that simply want to take away the town's rights to actually do it, is another reason we should vote no on this. Because 40B laws, that should be in here as something that we should get rid of immediately. Because the 40B laws only allow for 20%, 25% affordable. Meanwhile, we're going to create a great expense for the rest of the taxpayers to move more people here that we can't afford to take care of by admission of our own department heads. So the emphasis in this plan for Pine Oaks Village 4 is a mistake, and therefore I can't support it, and I hope that the rest of the board will look at that and not support this document. And to the newspaper that's in the room, I said 1/3 of what I have to say, so if you want to interview, I've got 4 or 5 pages of additional notes.
Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't bring any notes. Just as a preface to this, I've been involved in affordable housing in the community in this community, not in the others, but for 28 years. I was the one who negotiated the purchase of the Mars Line property on behalf of the trust. I dearly think that we need some solutions. My problem with the report as it is, let's start at the middle of the process. The stakeholder meeting was more of a sales job than it was a listening job. I was very concerned about that. It really wasn't an opportunity to take input from on the part of the contractor, just to see any expressed concerns. As a matter of fact, I actually pointed out that there was absolutely no engagement of any of the providers. I'm the president of HESH, myself, CDP, HAC. There really wasn't done in conjunction with anybody who could actually implement anything. That's my one practical problem. The second practical problem I have is we got 7 villages, and if you delete the 2 smaller ones, one size doesn't fit all, and it really does. There's a ton of data, but I feel like I need my hip boots to wade through it to figure out exactly what it's trying to say. There needs to be actual deliverable conclusions at the end of it about what could be done here, what could be done there that would be consistent. And that's my final problem, is the consistency. We've got competing interests in this community. There's part of me that agrees with Michael that there are expenses that are associated with this. I worry about open space, about preserving what makes this place special and not wanting to pave it all over. But I also worry about how we're going to work as a community, and there really isn't any plan. I mean, it winds up addressing, and I'm not sure what it addresses, whether it's addressing up to 80% or up to 110%. But even at that, it's kind of like a ladder that's had a couple of its rungs cut off of it. You can't get from here to there. There's no equity position from anybody on the lower part of that plan to be able to give them an opportunity to get into a starter home, for instance, or something that's above the qualification level of a 40B. I don't, we have a myriad of regulations and zoning. That probably needs to be addressed, because we've overlaid things. We've got districts that have rules upon rules, but they don't necessarily encourage a conclusion that creates the kind of a community I moved into 34 years ago, which was largely, and I chose to be here. I wasn't fortunate enough to have been born here, but I chose to be here because it was an interesting community. It had working people who did things, and there were families. And I get that there's a national dynamic, and I get there's a Cape Cod dynamic. But through all of these statistics, I don't really see a ray of sunshine other than if we submit it to the state, then we get some compliance bonus points so that we can move forward without fear of them taking away, some of our grants or tax payments and that's the legitimate flip side that the community doesn't really realize. Unless we come up with a production plan, the state's going to punish us.
No.
Yes, they are.
Well,
It's baked in the cake, because that's what they do. If we don't get closer to 10% and we don't have a housing production plan, we get dinged. And that's the fact of the matter. So regardless of any of that, I have great misgivings. I'm not sure which side I'm going to fall on, but the reality is I want to see affordable housing. I want to see a community that's mixed. And I also want to see the protection of what makes us unique in terms of the open space. We have real problems that were precipitated by the lawsuit that was engaged on the Cape Cod that made us have to sue her. There has to be a conclusion to all of this that reconciles competing interests, the expenses here, what's buildable in each of the villages and what would be in character, and how we're going to address that at the same time as we protect open space that's, once that's consumed, there's no going back. So, and part of this just looks like a cut and paste job, which concerns me too. So with all of that, I really appreciate all the effort that went into it, but it's kind of like a homework assignment where there's a paper and you're scratching your head after you read it to say to yourself, what was this really about? I don't see concrete conclusions that can be derived specifically from this plan.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Sure.
As I understand the comments being made by the board members, you're expressing your comments to the record. I understand them not to be reflective of our Director of Planning and Community Development
No, not at all.
specifically.
Not at all.
She is, in this instance, our messenger, if I can say it that way. So I'm certainly listening to the comments of the board, as is the Assistant Town Administrator, as is the Director. So whatever the outcome is, the three of us will work together to convey that back to the local planning committee.
Thank you.
And their contractor particularly.
Understood.
Pete? If I
Oh,
could,
sure. No,
Madam
go ahead,
Chair,
Kristen.
As part
Sorry,
of the local comprehensive plan, I think, and I understand some of the concerns that Select Board Member McCaskill and Board Member Howell have articulated. And this is, it's a very dense document. It is an opportunity for the town to comply with the state guidelines as derived by the state. I will say, to your point about finding more action items specific, those goals and objectives and action items will be listed as part of the local comprehensive plan, which will, there'll be various sections by subject matter, and competing land, balancing competing land uses is a huge priority as part of the local comprehensive plan. It's a very complex issue. Your concerns about the 7 villages, that has been discussed at length by the LCP members, and it is an issue that we are going back and forth and will be articulated as part of the local comprehensive plan. So I don't know if that addresses some of your concerns. And to Board Member McCaskill, the plan also does recognize a lot of the work that the town has done in terms of dedicating the community preservation funds and support the great amount of work that the town has done to address affordable and attainable housing needs for the town.
Madam Chair, if I
Thank
could respond.
Sure.
And I do note that that is in there, and great work on that. The Pine Oaks Village thing really is the one, and then the statement about people pushing back. Well, they push back because we don't listen to them. And Pine Oaks Village 4 is not a reality, it's an application. In this report, it's the be-all, end-all for hitting the 10%. And in one part of town, we're gonna cram in 2 square miles as many affordable housing units to get the state to recognize that we're at that 10%. We don't need to be at the 10%.
Correct.
We only have to show that we're making progress and that we have a plan. So my note, and I do note that the planning board had some comments on some of this as well. My comment back to the board is, take a look at that. It doesn't exist. We shouldn't be using it as a tool. We should be telling our politicians and the state that we will control our own destiny. And to the Pete's point about calling legal counsel earlier tonight, this is one that we should be using legal for, because we're right there with every other town on Cape Cod. Yet we're going to ignore the environment. And the more you read this document, you get into the environmental concerns and some of the other concerns. So the document itself goes against the 4 or 5 pages ahead of it, which is promoting this project and wastewater, and not having a trunk that runs by there yet. Pine Oaks Villages, they're asking for Title V on the first phase. So I don't know how we promote this, or how this board puts a signature on this with all of that misinformation in there, and using something that's a proposal that there's been so many people against, without any environmental impact studies, without anything. Why they would put that in there, it shocks me. So, but thank you, and this, to the town administrator's point, is not directed at you.
No.
You're just the messenger bringing us the report, so I'm sending you back with my feedback, that's all. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Pete?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nice part about not speaking first is I get to say a lot less now. So a lot of what has been said already, I would agree with. And specifically, I have real concerns about the plan, because I see it less as a plan and more as a data storage document. So it talks about, you know, a lot of data points, there's a lot of historical perspective, but there aren't a lot of action plans. And it specifically talks about a housing production plan, and I just don't see enough of a plan in there. To Michael's point about, you know, the Pine Oaks being so prevalently outlined as a check mark already, when it's not. It's not accomplished, it has not been approved. That concerns me. But all those pieces are minimal to me in comparison to, I think, what was touched upon earlier, some of the competing forces when you talk about affordable housing. You know, folks want to put, you know, land into conservation, which we all want to support. Folks want to spend a ridiculous amount of money on putting a sewer system in town because the Commonwealth of Massachusetts tells us that's in our best interest. And all those things drive up the cost of an affordable home here in Harwich. So there are many components that really leave you scratching your head, and it's not unique to Harwich, it's not unique to 2024. These are things that have been going on since the beginning of time, right? How do we make things affordable, yet still provide services and protect, you know, certain areas of the town with open space and things of that nature? It becomes a real intertwined puzzle that is difficult to navigate without a true outlined plan with achievable objectives. But the utmost issue I have with this is it's the Commonwealth of Massachusetts trying to tell us, or many communities, not Harwich, how to operate their town, to Selectman McCaskill's point. I think they're the ones who need to get their house in order and stop trying to tell the folks in the communities in which they're supposed to serve how best to operate within their boundaries. So unfortunately, although I appreciate the great effort that all the folks put into this, no disrespect to you or the folks on the committee, I too will not be supporting this evening. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's more than a postscript to all of this. When John was trying to develop or redevelop the West Harwich School building, he became the poster child for a problem that isn't really addressed in this. There was an obscene amount of money up front to create just a cottage industry kind of amount of affordable housing. There has to be a recognition of smaller providers having to surmount a myriad of regulations and requirements for engineering and payments to even get into the room. So those things, you can get to places. I mean, I know when Hesh was doing this more vigorously in the early 2000s, we built 8 units. I mean, and you can't really finance that really well with MHP at this point because the thrust of it is like barracks buildings, more or less like what you see down on 28 that was the old Stone Horse. That's totally out of character for the community. But you can actually help skew things to a direction that would be in character if there was some sort of self-examination from our perspective about how much difficulty do you have to get through to be able to do something just minuscule, 4 units, 6 units, and we have a big problem with that. There's way too much regulation on that. There's way too much expense that's loaded onto that, and this doesn't do anything about it.
Thank you, Don. I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm very familiar with the 2006 Housing Production Plan, and what I would say that in the 2006 Housing Production Plan, which was a good plan, what happened was not a lot because zoning wasn't addressed, and I find this overall report comes up with the regulatory strategies on page 102 and starts to outline all the different initiatives that the town should be entertaining and having discussions on, some of which you just identified as the dormitory. They specifically call out having a housing for seasonal workers under proper control, so trying to define areas that would suit those needs. And I also like the fact that you not only talk about the trust, and I know the trust has come up with a rental assistance program, so that's another way to try to help people. Ultimately, I think it's on us as a town and as a community to start talking about those regulations and how we change them and how we adapt them to suit our community. So there are, we're talking about Pine Oaks 4, we're talking about other things on Bank Street and things that were done in existing buildings or proposed new builds. But this starts a great outline of how to attack those. And I think that has to be an action item, because 2006, the last time we really did this, and nothing really changed. And here we are, 22 years later, roughly, do the math, 20, ultimately in the same position. So if we don't do something and we don't listen to what a lot of people spent a ton of time and effort on, and I think I've made the comment multiple times in talking about seeing these statistics and how depressing they are, and it's on us to do something about them. So, I know others may feel that the state is jamming this down our throats. I don't. I think on a local level, we need to be having these difficult discussions. And I also think about breaking it into all the different sections, about talking again about revitalizing the discussion that happened several years ago in Harwichport and creating housing on second floors and helping those businesses by offering feasibility grants so that if it doesn't work out and zoning-wise they couldn't do it, or, if the zoning stayed the same, that would be something that was a grant instead of a loan. Those are new initiatives that we need to be thinking about constantly, because what are we facing? We're not doing anything to improve our situation, although ADUs are great, but people talk about the cost prohibitiveness of them. The trust is making strides, but again, it needs support zoning-wise as well. So, and one thing former board member Mary Anderson brought up was the creating starter home zoning. And I think that that's another important part, and I know that the trust was thinking about that when they broke their project in two, to see what could come in the next phase. So I think that we're starting to move in the right direction. We have a lot of work to do, and the Board of Assessors, Richard, I'm going to go to you next, is, that you have a unique idea too about how to help. So I just think that this gives us a document to guide us by, and what I hope is that we can take this and truly make it an action item, because in 2006 a lot of work was done as well and nothing really changed. So I don't want to be part of the not changing. I want to be part of working in our community to create housing in all the various aspects that we need it, because it's not just affordable, it's workforce. I've listened to the planning board meetings on this, I've listened to the LCP on this, and there's still a lot of questions and a lot of how do we make this move, but it has to keep moving. Richard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Richard Waystack of Harwich. I consulted on two of the projects that have been mentioned, the Bank Street project and the West Harwich Schoolhouse. And you're right, they're unique projects. It took a lot of work to get them through to provide, to be honest with you, minimal housing for town. I think it's difficult. This process is difficult for you. You are a messenger. And it's too bad we don't have a contractor with the members of the committee, because you've got some legitimate concerns, things that you want to see in the plan. And to have notes taken and notes packed onto a contractor, and then they'll meet about it and then come back, and then you guys will have some different discussions. We need a housing production plan. For anyone who in this room who doesn't think we have a housing problem in this community across Cape Cod, you're mistaken. I deal with this every single day. I'm a landlord. I have a number of properties that I rent out to people affordably. My wife and I, we do our own affordable plan. It's a major issue. And these folks have been working diligently to get it done. And I commend them. And I think you're in a very difficult position tonight, Christine. You're sending a message to this board. We can rally and rail about the state all we want. I'm concerned about Harwich. We need a production plan that has got some beef to it, and it talks about if we want to do starter homes. You know what a starter home is in town? $500,000 to $600,000. Far above the availability of most people. You need $200,000 plus a year in income. to qualify for that. If we're gonna do things, bring the people here, have a discussion, have a work group to say, okay, here are things that can address Mr. McGaskill, Mr. Pekarsky, Mr. Howell, Mr. Handler, and you, Madam Chair, the issues that you have, so we can get a workable housing production plan with some meat to it, specific things relative to zoning. I look at the Habitat project in West Harwich. 2 years to permit. 2 years to permit for 5 homes. Home ownership. 2 years. That should not be happening. If we want to address affordable housing, let's address it. But we can't keep fighting each other. Bring those people here. Have a meeting. Air out your grievances and your concerns and things that you think are being addressed. You want to take Pine Oaks? Take it out. Take it out of the plan altogether. Talk about specifics. So I encourage you. This is great. Take lots of notes. Pass them on to the contractor. Pass them on to the committee. They're going to kick it around again. Nothing's going to happen. We need a production plan. Whether we like it or not, we're still in an environment that 40Bs are required. And if we do ever hit a 10%, well, we don't have to deal with 40Bs any longer. And then we control our interest in this community. Not until that time happens. And we can try to file legislation to get out of the state's control. It's not going to happen. That's not reality. Reality is, people who come to me every day looking for a rental, looking for an affordable house, they cannot find them. I have a client right now selling a house off Cape, $500,000. Try to find a house in this community that she could buy. You can't. So I encourage you to work with those folks from the local comprehensive plan to get this done, and not just to be sending messages back and forth. If you have to meet together, you've got legitimate concerns, let them hear it and let them address it so that it can appease you to get it passed. It was passed by the planning board. A lot of discussion, good discussion. But those people should be in the room while we're having that discussion, not just having a messenger. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. All right.
Almost didn't make it. Good evening. Art Bowden, Harwich. I'm in the Harwich Housing Committee, Harwich Housing Authority. Now, I was sleeping very kindly back there, and the reason I came here tonight was not to talk. I came here to accept a position on the CPC committee and say thank you, and then go home to my lovely wife. But you woke me up. Start talking about housing, okay? You talk about the housing production plan. And I agree with almost everybody here. It's not a perfect document. It's far from perfect. It's full of holes, but it's what we got. A fact check, the last one was in 2016. Between 2016 and 2023, Harwich's housing, affordable housing program was Habitat for Humanity, 13 units. That's all we accomplished. We didn't do anything. Habitat did it. They just came through town and did their magic. 13 units in what? 6, 7, 8 years? That's not much of a record. And it was Habitat that did it. Now, I'm going to jump around here. I mean, I listened to everything. Everyone's jumping around. We're talking about open spaces. We have open spaces in town. I don't think half of us have even walked on a fraction of them. And we're getting new ones all the time. I mean, we don't take a backseat, as far as I know, to anybody on Cape Cod or any place else out there when it comes to open spaces. We got plenty. Not to say we have more than we need, but open spaces shouldn't be put up there and say, oh, it's not getting enough. It's got plenty, and it's getting more all the time, and it should. But it should not be the argument we were using tonight. Okay, here's another one. Last week, we had over at the Cultural Center, which is becoming a beautiful place. We had a housing forum, okay? I didn't see, except I think Mr. Waystack, I don't think I saw anybody else in this room there. No one was there. It was sparsely populated, I have to admit, But the people that did show up were there for one reason. They were looking for housing. Okay? So I put together one table for the Housing Committee. And I took a different approach. Everybody else there was advocating different support groups, things like this, and how to get different information and so on and so forth. I took the approach that what has Harwich been doing with housing? And we have been doing stuff with housing. So I put two posters together. One was which I called Saving the Past to House the Future. And it listed 4 projects in the works that were converting historical properties for housing. Now, granted, when they're finally completed, it's not going to solve the housing problem. Not at all. But if you're one of the people that get an apartment in one of those buildings, your problem's been solved. And that's a winner. As far as I'm concerned, if you make 1 unit a year and you solve one person's problem, you can stand up and take a bow, pat yourself on the back, you've done something. And then now you've got a person here that's happy and they got decent housing and so on and so forth. So anyways, we got 4 projects in town with basically shovels in the ground. And now they're not all affordable housing. Most of them are going to be market rate, but we need market rate also. We need all kinds of it. We don't need more $1 million houses, but in a sense we do, because what do? They help the tax rate. All those people living in those beautiful homes, and to whatever price tag is. They come. I call the people that come down here for 2 weeks a year. They're keeping us afloat. They're keeping the school system, the police department, and so we actually need more of them, really. But we also need affordable housing. So back to the housing production plan. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty about where I found the holes in it. It's shot full of holes, but it hit. The last one came out in 2016. And it's almost a carbon copy of what was produced this year. The document is not to support or Pine Oaks 4 or Pine Oaks 99 or anything specific, And I think those individual projects, they have to stand on their own. And if they don't meet muster, well, or they'll either get changed or they get shut down, That's it. I'm not advocating that we have to approve everything because it's got affordable housing on it. If it doesn't pass muster in town, if what we want and what we should have here, then so be it. Hit the road, Joe, But we need affordable housing. We need all kinds of housing. We need the whole range of housing. It's okay. I've said more than I should have, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Art. And just for clarification, I think you're right. I mean, I think a lot of the zoning that was in the 2016, though, came from the 2006 plan. I don't think a lot of that changed. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Bob Young. I live on Route 1006, Route 28, and I'm a small landlord. I've got 2 units there and a barn, and several neighbors around me, and we've been talking about the affordable housing because I have one building that is 2 units, and I need a zoning change. My neighbor did, both of my neighbors do too. We got stopped at zoning. I don't have a 3-unit building. So I was given a 1-sentence, basically, hurdle, as it was called, that you don't comply and you can't do this project because you're not 3 units, you're just 2. And yet I had a barn that I wanted to convert, and my neighbor was facing a similar problem. And to me, this is the opposite of what you're fighting on the state level. I'm fighting it at your level, in an office over here, that I can't get past 1 sentence, that it's a hurdle saying you have to have a 3-unit, not a 2-unit, or you could have a garden apartment. So I think that until this town addresses its zoning block, you're not going to get affordable housing. We can do these little infill projects that can count towards affordable housing, singular apartments, one or two houses here, or I hire my own staff and other waiters, bartenders. That's where we really have to start, is at the ground level. And I can agree with Mr. McCaskill's arguments on this program. And I think it has to go back to planning, and especially zoning, to take a look at it. I was advised to go get an attorney at $300 an hour and an engineer to work through that single paragraph from this zoning department. And what happened was I sat at this table and with an engineer flipping through tabbed zoning laws, and the attorney was flipping through the same tabbed zoning laws, trying to find one common sentence. And I'm zoned for a B&B, but I don't want to do a B&B. What's the point of that when I want to do affordable housing on a couple of units? But it's determined on an attorney's tab and an engineer's tab, or a zoning officer. That is not fair, and that's not what Harwich should be doing to create singular apartments or housing to lift from the bottom up and not the top down. So that's my comment on your plan.
Thank you. And I think you hit the nail on the head about zoning and looking at the town. I think we all agree. Yeah, and I think, we all agree that we love our town. And certain areas can handle some types of housing and some areas can't. So we should be looking at the zoning and looking at our town and trying to figure out a way that works collectively for everybody to have different types of housing too, so that they're not all massive projects. Jeff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And after listening to the board members, I certainly agree with some of it. I don't agree with some of it. I think there are some strategies and paths. You outlined 1 through, 9, with timeframes and whose responsibility it will be to move, the responsible parties, who it would be to move things through. So I can appreciate that. Some of the comments that were made, I think, were a little on the tough side for those volunteers to hear, and I'll be honest with everybody about that. The question in my mind right now is, where do we go from here to make it the most efficient use of everyone's time and create a document that we can all be proud of and that speaks to Harwich as a whole. So as I'm sitting here, I'm chuckling and thinking, man, I wish we had a meeting before this presentation came forward. I think Mr. Waystack said that. So
I think we could start with that. I think, I like Richard's idea of having, all the players come in and have a joint meeting and have planning board here, have LCP here, LPC, I always mess that up.
That should probably be its own night.
Well, yes, I wouldn't disagree with that. It's probably a long conversation.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot of good in this housing production plan.
if I may, you told a story, a lot of data, and I think you needed to begin with telling that story. Because there's going to be a lot of people who haven't plugged into housing in Harwich, but now know that a housing production plan is coming, and they don't have the first idea of what's been going on for the last 5 years. And that's okay, and you needed to tell the story. I think it was a lot of data, of course. But like I said, where do we go from here? And it needs to be an efficient use of time. This to me is just a standout for, a group of really hardworking volunteers who spent a lot of time to now hear that, no, and this is holes and it's not great, and no. I think we need to do better. I think we need to get us all together in the same room with the planning board, because they had some really good thoughts and ideas. And if we're the ones who are supposed to, be the architects for this and lead this town into the next 5, 10, 15 years, we got to do a way better job of communication.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think the ball's been dropped. But I think we can right the ship, Christine. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Christine, and I hope you don't leave here feeling bruised, because
No, not at all.
we do know that you're the messenger, and I think there's a lot of good information.
Yes, and this is, for the housing production plan, this is really, again, I'll say it's an important project, as the town is moving forward with other projects and programs. This will help support, leverage some state funding. But I can appreciate the comments here tonight, and thank you all for your input. Moving forward, I can follow up with administration relative to a joint meeting. And if there are specific edits, please send me any specific items. We have tried to be very proactive in terms of encouraging public-private partnerships and recognizing that, you know, this is not a one-size-fits-all, and, you know, this is planning. It's never perfect, and zoning is never perfect, so
Right.
it's always a work in progress. That's my favorite line, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you all very much for your
Thank you. I'm
comments.
just going to go to Richard. He's back.
This is where the ball gets dropped. Thank you, we'll break the comments back. Nothing happens. Schedule a meeting with the parties. Get them all together. And I know, I've heard you people say over the years, well, you know, you could have attended those hearings. You could have attended those meetings. Your input could have been made. But it's the last minute. So get a meeting where everyone's there. It's a joint meeting with three, if you have to, three committees. Hammer it out. At the end of the night, come out with a production plan that everyone can agree on. Don't just say, well, we'll bring the comments back, we'll have another meeting with them, oh, then we'll come back with another meeting. Nothing gets done. Don't drop the ball, please.
No, I think we all agree with you. I mean, I think it has to be a dedicated, standalone meeting, and we have all three boards in that meeting to talk about all of these things, because we need a foundation, and we need to move forward.
Madam
So-
Chair, just briefly, if I may. And just because there's a record here, in past speak, solving an emergency that was created by poor planning, with poor planning, makes absolutely no sense. To say a document isn't perfect, but let's go ahead and vote for it so we can say we did something, should not be, and it will not be, anything that I ever support. We have absolutely got to have the data and file a good report.
And exactly how did that happen?
So, and then I would agree with Mr. Waystack about having the, Jeff looks like he choked on a lemon. Having that meeting sooner rather than later makes a lot of sense, but, you know, looking at the pieces that I commented on, we're talking about affordable housing, and we're talking about affordable rentals, and one person got up and spoke about affordable rentals. The major thing that's listed in here that is they're gonna save us with rental units, they're not even affordable rentals. And I would ask affordable to who? So, anyway, trying to lighten the mood here.
Madam Chair, for the record, your meeting continues on the Harwich channel.
Thank you.
I hope not in reruns. I just want to point out, because I really didn't want you to come off as feeling like you were getting it, but unfortunately, you're the messenger and you arrived here. The one person who is not here, and in all deference to Richard, yeah, the three committees, but the contractor. She seemed to put together a rather generic thing that was lathered with all kinds of stats, but didn't necessarily, I don't even know that she took a lot of time going around Harwich to recognize that the villages are all different. Or talk to some of the people, as Richard was talking about. I was the guy who was there with Richard on behalf of trying to get that habitat project passed. 2 years of my life I spent on just a minuscule amount of units. There's something wrong with that, too. She just doesn't, she has not addressed this stuff, and I feel like she's just put together something that would be anywhere USA and said, here, it's for Harwich, because I got a whole bunch of Harwich stats in it. So she should, and I don't mean on Zoom, she should be here in that meeting, too, because it's because of her work that the people that Jeff was talking about spent all the time and your time to be able to develop a plan to put in front of the planning board, who, by the way, I know had great misgivings about this in certain areas. They voted for it because they felt they needed to advance a plan. But Michael's right. I mean, if you don't have a plan and there's a full-fledged five-alarm fire, the answer isn't set another fire. We need to be able to have a real plan that has real measurable conclusions, and she needs to hear that in this room.
Christine, I'm sorry, did you want to say something? Okay. Thank you. And thanks again for all your work on this, and
Thank you very much for
we
your
will not drop the ball. We will definitely get a meeting scheduled. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I will still be meeting with my team
Great, thank you.
tomorrow on this. Madam Chair and the members, could I beg your indulgence under new business? You're about to get into licensing matters, but if you look at item H, we actually have the only two licensees that
Oh, yes.
are required to be here. So the Snows are here regarding that, so if you'd be
They need to get an
willing
award of
to
some
take
sort.
Yes.
Well, I think you can reward them with a license discussion.
Yes. You can come sit there. Yes.
Madam Chair, I
Thank
move
you.
that we approve a new 2025 Class 4 auto repair license for Snow's Small Engine, 216 Route 28.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
If I could just, it's a compelling story in a
Sure,
very
yeah.
positive way. Andrew, if you don't mind telling us the plan and where it was and where it's going.
Yeah, so my dad's owned the shop since probably 1985. I was 2 or 3 years old when he moved in there and kind of grew up there. I went to school in Harwich. I went to the tech school for small engines, and I've been kind of working with him a little bit. He's getting ready to retire, so just kind of looking to take it over and maybe do some other stuff, cars and lawnmowers and things like that.
Oh,
So
that's great.
looking to just kind of stay in town and keep it up and running.
Well, we love those stories because we love you staying in town.
Yep.
So that's great.
And they have never complained about the regulatory requirements that bring them here or this evening, so we thank them for that.
Or for their time that they spent getting to this point.
Best
Learned a
of
lot
luck.
about Harwich tonight.
Yeah, well, so did we.
Our vulnerabilities.
So,
Best of luck to you. Welcome,
Thank
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, we didn't vote.
We didn't vote, so.
All in
Motion second.
favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. The least we could do for you.
Andrew, you can contact us in the morning. We should have that ready for you. All right, just give us a call, thank you.
Madam Chair, since we're there, I'd also, could we just jump on to item I, vote to appoint the recommendation of the
Yes,
Housing
thank
Committee
you.
for Art Bowden to the Community, it's easy for me to say.
Second.
Community Preservation Committee, term to expire June 30, 2027.
Yep,
Did you second that?
I did.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
I think he's back to sleep.
Aye. You can go home now to your lovely wife. Thank you, Art. Okay. Is there anybody else you got hanging around? No? Oh,
She's
well,
hanging
sorry.
He's got nothing better to do.
His item now, too. We can skip over and go to, so poor, where is it?
That's under contracts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would argue that I think he's okay if we continue on with new business.
Oh, all right, okay.
So, thank you, Madam Chair and everybody. Now, back to item E. As you know, this is an annual requirement from the ABCC, and it would be for you, the local licensing authority, to establish what we expect our seasonal population to be on July 10th, 2025. I think the number we've been using for a number of years is 35,000, but it is the board's right and responsibility to set that number.
Thank you.
Can I-
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to point out, there are some ramifications, though, before anybody starts thinking about 45,000 or 48,000, because there are things that derive from that number if we approve it. So just, can you kind of walk us through that? I believe there are licenses that, if you increase,
I don't believe that's the case with this form. Towns that issue seasonal licenses
Yeah.
just have to tell the Commonwealth what they believe their population is generally. I don't believe we're bound by any number. I can tell you in previous communities that I've worked, far smaller populations year-round have had far greater than 35,000. I don't believe this gets to quotas.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
I move that we vote to approve the 2025 Alcohol Beverage Control Commission seasonal population form at 36,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I will note that this has been like this for like the past 1,000 years, so, and yet the town's population has increased, so it's probably, and we're somewhat similar to Dennis, and their number is higher. I'll vote for it, but I'm just letting everybody know that our number's on the low side and hasn't been addressed in a long time.
Staff doesn't make a recommendation, we leave it to the board.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Okay.
We'll put Jeff on a committee to do a study this summer to determine.
All right, on to
Refreshments will be served.
item F.
Madam Chair, members of the board, as you know, this begins the annual process of renewing. Specifically, this evening, you're being asked to renew 11, Section 12, which is on-premises service, AKA restaurants and what have you. And then immediately following that would be the package stores. So item F is the first tranche of 11 licensed establishments that are seeking to be renewed.
Thank you, Joe.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the following Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 12, annual liquor license renewals. Allen Harbor Yacht Club, Inc., 371 Lower County Road. Beach Light LLC, DBA Sale Pub, 703 Main Street. Ember Pizza, Inc., DBA Ember, 600 Route 28. 400 East, Inc., 1421 Orleans Road. Harwich Port House of Pizza, Inc., 330 Route 28. Harwich Port Seafarer, Inc., DBA Harwich Port Seafarer, 86 Sisson Road. Milano Hospitality Group, LLC, DBA Milano's Italian Kitchen, 278 Route 28. Red River Barbecue, LLC, 787 Route 28. Round Cove Resort Beverage, LLC, DBA Wacquasit Inn, 2173 Route 28. Oh boy, Spiriton and Aglia Christakis, DBA George's Pizza House, 564 Route 28. Zach Inc., DBA Castaways, 986 Main Street.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yeah, can I ask that you include in that motion that any previous restrictions from prior licenses be carried forward onto any renewal?
So move.
Part of my second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Madam Chair, if I may, help Pete out a little bit. I move to approve the following MGL Chapter 138, Section 15 annual liquor license renewals with all past, what's the language, Don?
With all previous restrictions that may have been contained on any of them.
Exactly that. ATJX Inc., DBA Moonshine Liquors, 4 Great Western Road. Bourne Petroleum Ltd. Limited, DBA Harwich Exxon, 173 Pleasant Lake Ave. Cranberry Liquors at Harwich Port LLC, DBA Cranberry Liquors, 555 Route 28. Main Street Quick Pick Inc., DBA Main Street Market. Moloch Corp., DBA Value Mart, 435 Route 28. And Portside Liquors 3 Inc., DBA Portside Liquors, 1421 Route 39.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. And then we've done H and J, I, and we're holding J, so now we're on to old business. And this is our public comment document, and I know that there was some confusion because we had a couple different, we had the memo that Danielle gave us with the changes. Just trying to find my document. I went through the last, the actual draft that consolidated. The only place I saw a couple things missing was, and not missing, but for us to add, I should say, is under E, procedures. We talked about, all agendas of multiple member bodies in the town of Howard shall include a 20-minute period for public comment, which can be adjusted by the chair, or we talked about the majority of the board. So I think we can say by the chair or the majority of the public body, or just have the majority of the public body there. That was the only item there. And then in item 3, we said each speaker will be allowed to speak once for up to 3 minutes, but that was per topic. And I thought we talked about getting rid of the chair may curtail, right? And we left, that's not in 3, and I think we wanted it to
Gone,
not be in
right.
3,
Yeah.
correct?
That's in my notes as well.
Yeah, okay. So the only change then in the number 3 would be to add per topic. Do you guys agree? Is there anything, any other language? I didn't see anything from,
The only other thing I had, Madam Chair, was on 5, which
oh, yes, I had
included
another, yeah.
board members.
I had, for that also, town employees have business with the public body will not request recognition during the public comment period. And I had put in my language, and will precede the public comment period, so that they could just come in, say their piece first. And that, sorry, and, I can't even read my own writing. And will not request I think Pete and Dawn, this was yours, and will not request recognition during the public comment period.
Yeah, we both.
Correct?
Right, we wanted them to have their own
Yeah.
time. Now, the only thing I'd say regarding your point, Madam Chair, is whether or not we needed to say proceeding is, I suppose, up to the chair going, future, subsequent years down the road.
Yeah,
If, when, like, for instance, when you're creating the agenda, perhaps,
we could put section up.
or
Yeah.
a town employee is not gonna be here at the beginning, so you don't necessarily want it
True,
at the beginning.
that's true, yeah, so maybe not that
That's
part of
specific,
it,
just that they
yeah.
have their own
Yeah, all
time,
right,
their
so we'll
own
just
spot.
leave it at not during public comment. Okay, so I think that's the only things I saw missing from this document, but does anyone else have any other comments?
I just have one question. I'll ask Select Board Member McCaskill to clarify. Your proposed revision for proposed edit would be to add that public comment is for Harwich residents only.
Oh, right, there was another.
Would there be any latitude by the chair to allow somebody who's not a Harwich resident to then speak?
I think it should be voted full board.
Okay. Just a little, I'm just looking for a little more clarity.
I'm good with vote of full board, but I don't think we should be getting into other towns coming in to push their private agendas at our public meetings.
And I agree, and I'm completely comfortable with, at the board's discretion.
I
I
think,
just don't want to squash it all together.
yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think at the discretion of the board. And so I guess the other question on that is where to put that, maybe up front. Does anyone have any comments on that item?
Yeah, I mean,
Peter, Don?
And as far as the resident piece?
Yeah. Like, in terms of at discretion of the board and where, in the document, should we probably put it in,
Put it under procedures,
Yeah.
number 1.
Yeah, right away.
that's what I mean, right up
Put it
front.
right up
under-
front.
So that would become number 1, and everything else would follow suit.
Sure.
Patrick?
Yeah, good evening, Board. Thank you. Patrick Otten, East Harwich. Couple of questions, just for clarity. Does this policy apply only to the Select Board or to all board committees and commissions? Do they also have public comment periods or not? And can you define your terms? What do you mean by public? I think you just touched on that. It's residents, okay? And I don't understand the special conditions for town employees. Why are they distinguished and separated from others? Are town employees residents? Are they simply employees? And can residents speak only during public comment period, or can they join in all discussions? And does this apply to agenda item discussions as well? So I'm just curious where this fits into the meeting procedures. Is that
So I'm gonna go back to.
one at a time?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I think I'm going to go to the employee one. So the employee one is just to say that it's separate. So we were trying to make it a longer span of time for, well, I'll say residents or people coming to the podium to speak during public comment, so that time would not include employees coming to give updates.
Oh, I see.
So that there would be an elongated period of time.
Much like we had this evening with the,
Yes, right.
gotcha.
So there's that, and then in terms of, what was it? Did you say who was the public?
Well, right, define public. I think you're touching on that by saying they must be residents.
Right.
Okay, good. And does this policy apply to all boards, commissions, and committees as
Well,
well?
this is the select board's
It's only
public
the select
comment
board's policy.
right.
Gotcha, okay. And does this also apply to the public comment? Well, when public can comment on discussion on agenda items, does this also apply when agenda items are being discussed, only for public comment period at the
So,
beginning?
no, I mean, so when we go for a topic on an agenda,
Yeah.
like, for instance, remember when I said to you, oh, public comment's gonna be on the agenda, or you could talk about it now, or you could wait till it comes up. So, at that point, it's per topic. So if you have something to say about a topic on the agenda, you should speak to it when it comes up on the agenda.
And is that limited by this, this outline?
Well, it's all at the discretion.
Okay,
of-
gotcha.
And we're actually even broadening that to say that it's at the discretion of the board, rather than one person.
Right, okay, good, no, I appreciate it, thank you for this.
Madam Chair, can I ask just a point of clarity here for me? So Patrick asked a question regarding, is this only for the select board or for all public bodies? And in our first draft, it states, the policy is adopted to facilitate orderly and efficient public comment periods at meetings of town public bodies. So does that,
So,
is this going to be town public body wide, or is this specific to only the select board? Because if it's specific to only the select board, we should probably consider changing that line.
probably, I mean, we haven't, no other board has had this conversation. So I would think that at this point, we developed this as a select board policy. I mean, other public bodies can have these same discussions.
Yeah, okay.
If I could just comment on John Giorgio's note here, it says, this would include both elected and appointed boards, although the authority to require this by the elected board is limited. So we couldn't necessarily tell another board this is how they have to operate.
So does that mean we would then change that language
Yeah,
to
we
say
should.
select board
Yeah.
only?
We should do that. We should change it to select
Okay.
board.
Great.
My understanding from Attorney Giorgio's, the reason this came forward was it was all public bodies. And to Pete's point, we can't tell the water commissioners to adopt this policy. But I thought we were creating this, that first line should stay. We're creating this as a Board of Selectmen policy for all public bodies. And that was the recommendation of council.
That's the way I heard it in the beginning.
Because I didn't hear it that way, but.
And if we want to pause and vet that to make sure that the way it was described, this was our policy for all public bodies. And then I would just further one other clarification. Let's finish this one. I don't want to confuse it.
Go ahead.
Just as a chair of two different committees, I'm assuming, listening to the discussion, that would apply to the committees that I chair. So I'm assuming that you're going to be doing it for all committees, non-elected committees.
Well, I would say there's a little confusion there, because when we specifically talked about it with John, we got two different opinions of it, and I'm happy to go back and just get clarification. I just would want as we develop this policy, we've also not given other boards the opportunity to have discussion on it, so. I know it's a select board policy, so.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, but if you go back and ask, the delineation in my mind would be, the advisory committees are all a construct of the board itself. They don't exist to make any kind of rulings on anything, so we do have jurisdiction over those. I'm wondering if he was saying that the regulatory committees, like CONSCOM or Board of Health, or if we can actually tell them how to run their meetings. I'm not sure of the answer. I'm bringing up that may be the divide.
Right, and I think, to Michael's point and Pete's point, I think elected and regulatory that's where I'm trying to understand that part, because otherwise the policy of the select board goes down to the other committees, because they are falling under the select board. So this policy as select board would apply to us and any other committees that aren't regulatory or elected, but you.
Well, and I look at, for instance, the Board of Health years ago. There was a chair that was not the friendliest of chairs, would not allow people to speak. And I think if you're going to do it, they are not elected. That if you're going to do it for your board, you do it for your boards. And if it's an elected board, if it's water commissioners, if it's library trustees, it's a different story. But pretty much everyone else, every other committee is appointed by your board.
And I think it's a good policy. Our boards, we have public comment periods. People don't come to our meetings, but that's okay, but we have it is on our agenda.
You'd have a policy to follow.
And we follow the policy of this board. And if this board is saying, you're holding this policy, we will adopt it. I will bring it back to both of my committees, but I think it should be an edict of the select board.
Well, actually, that's another good point, though. I mean, if the policy is going to apply, do you even have to adopt it? If it's a select board policy that's introduced and then handed down to each non-elected
To be frank, as a committee chair, longtime chair, if you have an edict, I'm going to follow it. I don't think we need to discuss it. That's an
Right.
edict.
We
And if
just-
it's good for the select board, why wouldn't it be good for my boards?
Right, so we're just distributed to those boards, and then to the regulatory and the elected, I guess we
That's all I was asking, so
clarification
just
from-
check on
Yeah,
that for
from
the
John.
legal.
All right, so we'll check with John on that, and then, but technically, this can still count as the first reading, correct? Joe? Do we have to push it again?
So you should have copies of your policy on policies.
We do.
Have we
I
followed
believe
it?
it is the discretion of, well, if I may read your
I
policy.
think we've read it in full.
The
at this
description
point.
of first reading concludes with the following sentence. At the conclusion of the first reading, the select board may vote that the policy be forwarded to the second reading stage, or may refer the matter to another venue for consideration prior to advancement. So you
Okay.
can send it to second, or you can send it to somebody.
Jeff's committee.
Somebody.
My only concern is with the amendments that we were talking about, I couldn't possibly read what we discussed this evening.
So let's bring it back.
So
100%.
All right, so let's
bring
bring
it
it
back.
back.
Copy of what we're talking about here, yeah.
All right,
So I think theoretically, if I may, what you're saying is that you're sending this to staff for updates for another first reading.
yes,
And to check with.
So that we
legal
can actually
counsel
read it.
about
and with an answer on the,
the legal answer and where the
our
divide
legal
is.
advice. We should have asked John while he was here.
I'll call him tomorrow.
Yeah, call him.
More billable hours.
Madam Chair, just one more clarification, if I could, from a previous speaker's question that I think it's important because not all topics, the chair and even you this year, have not allowed public comment. So, for instance, Pine Oaks, not to bring that up again, but there was a meeting that we went through and it was for us. We had the
Yes,
public one
right,
the week before and you chose not to let anyone speak at that meeting.
Right.
So I just want to make it clear that a public meeting is exactly that. A public hearing, you don't have the right to tell anyone they can't speak. A public meeting, the chair can decide not to take public comment. And I don't want the person that asked the question leaving thinking that they have a right to
No.
every topic. Certainly, we try and accommodate always, but it's not required.
No, no.
Can,
And I guess if there's ever a question on that, you can ask that at public comment. Can I talk to this when it's on the agenda, or do you want me to speak on it now? Which you did a couple weeks ago. Don?
as long as we're going to do this, I'm wondering what the rest of the board feels. I was on a board in the early 2000s where the chair decided that it was just a dandy idea to put the comment section at the end of the meeting, basically to make sure that no one would wait to be able to say anything. We actually were holding our meetings at 7:30 at that point, so it was pretty much at 10 at night. You'd have to kind of wait through the whole meeting in order to do it. Is it also your intention to talk about this as it being structured so that it's at the initial part of the meeting, so that kind of shenanigan doesn't happen?
Joe?
If it helps the board has regulations on your agenda, and that dictates the order of business. So one could argue that it's a violation of the regulations.
And yet we did it.
I think the board should be aware you have regulations on your agenda.
Okay. All right, so we'll bring it back with a clean copy and legal's advice. Anything else on that? No? Okay. And then B, second reading.
Madam Chair, the Town of Harwich Low Pressure Grinder Pump System Policy, LPGP, The purpose of this policy is to define the low-pressure grinder pump, LPGP system program, and responsibilities related to the implementation of grinder pump purchasing, distribution, and ongoing ownership. Scope, the engineering design of the town of Harwich wastewater collection system will generally consist of gravity mains and service laterals, except in certain locations where individual low-pressure grinder pumps, LPGP systems, are deemed necessary due to elevation differences. Where an LPGP system is specified for a single-family residential property in the sewer system design or is otherwise recommended for installation at any such property by the town's design engineer, the town will provide one LPGP system per property at no charge to the property owner. The town shall procure the LPGP system through a competitive bidding process. To receive the LPGP system, the property owner shall sign a transfer document prior to receiving the pump from the town. The town will then transfer the ownership of the LPGP system to the homeowner. Upon acceptance from the town, the homeowner shall thereafter be solely responsible for its installation, operation, maintenance, and repair according to the Harwich Sewer Use Regulations. The operation and use of such LPGP system shall comply with the sewer use regulations as promulgated by the Board of Water and Wastewater Commissioners and any related policies adopted by the Select Board. Madam Chair, I move that is our official second reading and final reading of our low-pressure grinder pump system policy.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? No, right? All in favor?
Aye.
4-0.
Five.
Well, he's not here.
Want to wait?
Yeah, you want me to wait? I can wait.
4-0.
The effect of which is to adopt the policy?
Yeah, adopt it.
Thank you.
Okay.
That
I
was
think we're
motion.
good with 4-0.
Sure.
Second.
Do you
second
support the
reading
grinder
means-
pump policy? 5-0. All in favor, just say aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 5-0. All right, now, on to the annual town meeting articles. The list was in the packet, because we've done the ones we can do now. The others are pending dollar amounts, but certainly we can talk about whatever other ones we want to do. And there's the conversation we should have on the WIF. And I'd like to Joe to give an overview if anyone wants an overview on that again. And then we talked about Richard's Board of Assessors, one that we need to bring back, but we need council to give us that. So I'll open it up to the board. Does anyone want to talk about any particular ones?
Madam Chair, if I could.
Sure.
What this list is meant to represent are all of the known articles, both customary, budget, capital, community preservation, which are standard, and then any of those articles that we staff are aware of that relate to governance, requirements, appropriations, or other customary articles. So right now, you can see that there's a roster of 41 potential articles. It does not, however, yet identify any articles by citizen petition, because as you know, the charter requires those to be received up to and including the first Friday in February at noon.
Well, I guess I'll just start on, in terms of the 1, 2, and 3, those, I mean, obviously, those numbers haven't changed in years, right? So,
Article 3 changes,
elected official salary?
correct.
Oh, because of,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it changes, or it may change.
oh, okay.
Town clerk is
Depending-
one, the town clerk is one of them.
Getting a raise?
Select Board's getting a raise there.
Getting a
Don't
raise.
get us so excited.
Nice
The town
decrease,
clerk's
actually.
into
Doesn't
that.
do no harm.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of these need numbers, so, right, to that point, we have to hang on.
It's a
so-
start.
I think, Madam Chair, to your point, if you look in the, starting at number, not article, but just number 26 on the list, going down to number 35, these are a number of governance. More often than not, amending the general bylaws, in some cases, or one case, potentially amending the zoning bylaws, as well as securing an eminent domain right-of-way. So those are topics that, well, let me first speak to the general bylaws. You're not inhibited by a schedule. Zoning bylaws, you are, there's a much heavily regulated schedule on that. Theoretically, you could address the other topics there if you wanted. I will tell you that the number 27 relates back to the discussions that have been held earlier. That's the item related to the assessors. That is with council. We haven't gotten it back from council. So you could start digging into those. I'd also want to just be able to identify the footnotes that are there. So if we do have items in the capital plan, and I'll use this as a mechanism to tell you that the Capital Outlay Committee and I are finishing up our work on December 3rd with the goal of having it come before you as a joint meeting between you folks and the Finance Committee as required by the charter. And we're looking to do that as early as December 9th. But those debt exclusions would also require companion ballot questions, excuse me, on the annual town election warrant. As part of the process on number 29, if the town meeting were to adopt, well, regardless, it's a two-step process on the WIF, that article and the adoption of the same, and a ballot question. Number 35 is related to an ongoing project that relates to Harwich Elementary School and would require eminent domain taking. And number 37 is just a reminder that there is that ongoing matter of electronic voting at town meeting. I put it here, but it could theoretically also appear, or rather appear, as an operating budget item if that's what the board wanted to. Then the last four are your true customary.
Thank you. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is an appropriate spot to say this. Given the fact that the Brooks Academy advisory folks are coming in on Wednesday with Jeff and I were posted, just want to make sure that this is sequenced right, because I don't want to see the capital plan get closed off before recommendations are given to the board. So I'm kind of urging the chair to make sure that the Brooks Academy is on the next agenda, which would precede that meeting.
Oh, I thought you were meeting this Wednesday.
No, yes, that meeting would happen, the select board meeting would happen, and then whatever the outcome of that meeting is, would inform the Capital Outlay Committee of where we desire to go with that building.
Understood.
So to be clear, John, if through you, Madam Chair, you're asking to make sure that that is on next Monday's agenda.
And that we should probably have a recommendation in front of the board to do.
All the information we need to be able to make a recommendation.
One way or the other.
One way or the other from this board.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll make sure that's on there. Any other comments on any of these articles? Michael?
Not on these. Where do we stand, and sorry if I missed it, I was trying to find a document on an article that I'm going to propose for the board, but the school and the assessment. Are we going to move forward this year with an article at town meeting based on the assessment? I know you had a meeting, I know you explained that meeting, but are we bringing that back up to have that equity conversation?
I mean, it's up to the board if you guys want to move forward with that. I can tell you that the feeling on their end was a very hard no.
That's not shocking. And it would be a no if we were on the other side of that, but I think at some point, the town of Harwich needs to be presented with at least the question on whether or not they want to move forward with going to the state and having the state make the decision. And I believe that belongs in front of the voters. I don't believe that, and I said this 2 years ago, the town of Harwich and the town of Chatham are ever going to agree on this. There's no way that they're going to agree to pay more and to take this up. And I believe it belongs back with the state to come up with a formula like they've done in other communities. Charles Garushka has spelled it out perfectly clear in my mind, the most compelling argument as to why we should be having this conversation. So I don't know what the board's appetite on bringing that up this year, but at some point we have to get to a no. Or a yes from Tommy.
I would support that we at least proceed in that way. Because there's no leverage otherwise.
Was that the consensus?
Well, Good.
No, go ahead, Pete.
Because I'm in agreement of having the discussion and potentially bringing it to town meeting. And again, we can kind of vet through the specifics, but at a minimum, we should be looking at a 50/50 on, you know, building renovations and things of that nature, as opposed to the 75-25 split that's occurring now. Even if you want to try to keep the operating expense, you know, for staffing and supplies at a 75-25, which I don't necessarily agree with either, but I'm willing to at least have that discussion. But capital improvements should not be a 75-25 split.
Desi.
No?
Desi.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's all I was saying.
Yeah, I would support it. I think that there would need to be an incredible amount of education given to the public before town meeting about this, so that they really have a good understanding of exactly why we're putting it in front of them prior to sitting at annual town meeting. I don't know how we do that.
I agree, and I think we have to think about the implications that may raise for families and what they start to hear without being, you know, obviously properly educated.
And that's my point about the education.
Yeah.
We don't want to scare anybody into
Right,
thinking
and
that our
they-
school system's not going in the right
Exactly.
direction. But they need to be properly informed as to,
Right, and so maybe that is, so, you know, when I'm thinking about that in terms of a realistic discussion and a useful discussion and how that goes forward, is that is an education of the public. And I think, you know, it's already December almost, so thinking that we're gonna educate the public before town meeting on that without causing some sort of anxiety amongst other families is probably not realistic.
The counterpoint to that, Madam Chair, if I might, is that we have been kicking this can down the road for 4 years. They are adequately informed that there's a disparity that we want to address. What has happened isn't that they don't know, it's that we can't advance our position without Chatham agreeing to that. And somewhere or another, we have to actually take some sort of stand that if they don't want to, I think Michael's right, that Desi, you know, I'd have to actually get involved with what it would be an equitable agreement. Otherwise, we're just going to keep spinning our wheels, and next year we're going to have the same discussion again, and the year after we're going to have the same
Well,
discussion.
I think we're talking about two different groups then. I'm saying in terms of, I understand that Chatham knows that we've been talking about this and that they're well-informed. I'm saying families who are in our school system, and we want to be careful about that because we also have a neighboring town doing a massive renovation. And, you know, we're at numbers now that are great in the sense of the high school, we've got a waiting list. So I think we want to be careful about that message and what message we're sending without properly spending the time to educate families and the reason why this board would be looking to have that kind of a conversation. That's my only point. I'm not saying, we all acknowledge that this is a difficult issue that we've been talking about for the last couple of years, to your point. I'm just saying, how do we go about that in a timely way that gives proper time to notify, you know, educate families that they understand where this board is coming from? Jeff?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay.
Nothing.
So,
So what's the outcome?
Well, that was, I'm sorry, I'm not fine.
Too late, too late.
Clearly, I'm not fine. What is the outcome? What is our next step? Is the next step to hold 2 or 3 public engagements and inform that way? I think they'd be probably the most well-attended public engagements that we've had in a long time, honestly, to do with our school system. But to your point, I understand where you're coming from. But there's also a lot of misunderstanding, misconception, and rumors going around as well. That could be harmful and detrimental as well. I think the truth and the facts are where we need to begin. I just don't know how to get it to the public as efficiently as we can.
I don't either, in the sense of the timing too, so. It's up to this board what you
Well,
want to
I
do
would suggest,
next.
Madam Chair, that as a group, we need to decide what we want to move forward with, right? And then, once that's defined, we can try to, you know, bring others into the conversation, whether it's members of the, you know, school committee that represent the town of Harwich, or whether we seek input from from some of the, and I'm sorry, it's been a few years since I've served on them, but the school groups there, the advisory groups that work with the principals to get their
Councils.
feedback. I'm sorry?
Councils.
Councils, thank you, right. So in any event, there's a lot of paths that we can go down, but I think we just needed to kind of define what path or what avenue we want to go initially and see if there's community support for that. Clearly, one of the easiest things to discuss, right? We know there's at least a $6 million request coming before us, probably more. So an easy discussion is, currently it's 4 and 2, or do you want 3 and 3? And that's just the easy math of how we split the costs associated with capital projects. If we want to get deeper into, the allocation for, pupil services and whatnot, then that's a whole different conversation, but it's one we should have collectively and decide how far and how deep we want to go with it.
I guess, just to bring it back to where we started, which was under town meeting articles. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I don't believe even if we said we want to have this discussion about a 50-50 split on capital, that's not in line with the current agreement, so.
Agreed.
Right, so like, that's a conversation we can have, but it's nothing we can do for the upcoming town meeting. So, I just,
Well,
I'm just saying.
I think we can have a discussion at town meeting to see if we have the town meeting support to attempt to move forward.
Yeah, I guess.
Right? We know, we're not just gonna wave a wand and
Right.
Chatham's gonna go, yeah, great, let's split it all, evenly.
Here's the check.
So,
Yeah.
the reality is, it's probably gonna end up at the state level. Makes me cringe to say it, but that's probably what's gonna end up, right?
Definitely,
But let's
yeah.
face it, we're not unique. There isn't a regional agreement out there that everybody is in love with, right? Every town is part of a regional agreement has some dissatisfaction. And we clearly have some because right now, we send the largest amount of students into the school systems, and so the percentage is weighing heavily on Harwich. The argument that some can make and have made is that when you talk about a building, heating the building, electricity in the building, they would need those components even if Harwich wasn't there.
Right.
So that's the component we try to look at. Can we be more equitable with the split on those areas? Let's face it, personnel costs are still gonna be the greatest number of their budget. So Harwich is still gonna pay a greater number, but can it be more equitable than it is today? And again, especially when you start talking about these capital improvements.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Well, I was just going to say two thoughts. To your point, the question really is are we going to ask the voters to move this forward to the next level and have a conversation potentially with the state? That's for the voters to decide, not this board, I don't think. And then the second thing I would ask is, do we think there'd be value to having Charles Grushka come in for, and give us some information at a public meeting here?
So, this board can do whatever they want. We have had an extensive amount of information shared with us over the last, 2 years, I think, from him. And the only thing I would say about what he proposes, because it was fascinating to me to read a lot of the different stuff, is that as much as it's a flip-flop of our agreement in the sense that the wealthier community, I'm totally blanking on the names of the towns, I can't remember them, but the town that's wealthier, what is it again, Bill?
Just by the sea in Essex?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. And so it's the reverse in terms of, the towns, so that Harwich having more people and having the lower income of the two, and it's reverse in that scenario. So although it's a good example, there are reasons that we face problems that they don't face, because even though Manchester by the Sea I suppose is somewhat of a seaside community, they don't necessarily face the same problems we face about the housing issues and not being able to attract staff because we don't even have apartments and things for people to rent. So I think although it's an example that helps sort of bring it down to a certain level, it doesn't always apply in all the particulars of the example he gave. So that's the only reason I would hesitate, is we've read so much different information on that.
And I think you're right. I think he's a wealth of information, and this board can ask questions. We have to start somewhere.
So that's where, yeah.
That's where I would say we would begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And riffing off of what Jeff just said, just to put some context in this, it's not the last couple of years. Stephen Ford and I were working on this when in his first year on the board. This has been a while. This has been years that we.
That's 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 2014. That's 5 years. So my point is, it's not the last couple of years, and the public knows what's going on. The real danger here isn't creating a scare. The real danger here is that you get to a position like, I don't know, Yarmouth and Dennis, where they're perpetually at each other's throats and you get failed overrides. Because there's going to come a point where we don't have a control over a budget because it's the top line bill that gets sent into us, that we're going to start having real problems with Prop 2.5 and new growth being able to fund both that large a percentage of the school system as well as the regular municipal services. And that was always the real problem, is that we don't want to dumb down what's going on at Monomoy. We want it to remain an excellent source of education, but we're going to get strapped at some point. And I don't want to do that when it gets to be at a catastrophic level. It really needs to be done in a kind of orderly way. I think Jeff's probably right. Just have him come in and explain that and see if we can get something on town meeting to get a sense of the town.
So is that the consensus of the board, is to have Charles in?
Yeah, and any other players we think should be involved, but I think to Pete's point, let's have the conversation, decide what direction we want to go. Maybe then follow that up with one more meeting with the town of Chatham as a courtesy, and then put before the voters for an advisory vote. We've done that in the past, and we've talked about doing this for 2, maybe 3 years now. It's time to do it.
So the only thing I'm thinking is, in terms of having these meetings and then having an article ready for town meeting, in terms of bringing it to town meeting. That's my mindset from where we started this conversation about town meeting articles. So I guess my only thing is, let's try to have these conversations and see if we can come up with, I don't know that we're gonna have the time to come up with an article, but we can certainly try. Anything else on the articles?
Not tonight for me.
We had, if I may, we had a list last year presented on what we've already voted. And then, so maybe we recreate that list so that we can start to vote through the other ones with some conditions.
So I do have that for tonight. I hid those columns, but we can certainly perpetuate them going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can bring that, I mean, we might as well kind of either do this every week or every other week to bring these back. So we could, depending on what the agenda looks like for Monday, I think we should put it back on again and just keep talking about it.
I think you just put it on every week because you
Right.
could always not talk about something, but you can't talk about if it's not agenda.
Right, so I think we just start making that a standard item on the agenda, so we keep moving forward on those. And what about the WIF discussion? Do you want to have that as a topic on the agenda in the next, couple weeks? To revisit what that means?
I'm okay with that. One conversation we had was meeting with the folks from CPC to get their idea on reallocation of maybe the land bank money. I think we should probably do that in concert with that.
Yeah.
Because if we can get the funding source to be that without raising percentage of people's taxes, is certainly something I'd be more interested in than a standalone.
Oh, I agree, yeah. Anything on that?
I would just add, as far as the WIF item, I'm fine putting it on the agenda, but I don't think we need council present for that discussion.
Oh.
I think John Giorgio was saying, I think during the last discussion with that, so
Oh, yeah,
I
he
don't believe we
was,
need
yeah,
that
to
again.
guide us,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't think we need him for that.
I just
yeah.
wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
was the consensus.
Yeah. But maybe that's maybe the first discussion then is a joint meeting with CPC to talk about what that looks like. So I'll get that on in the next couple weeks. Anything else on those articles? Nothing for now. Then,
Madam Chair, without further ado, could we now take a contract out of order?
yes.
So that would be under contracts, item D, discussion and vote to approve a change order with GHE Incorporated for the Phase 3 sewer extension project to include a bathroom at the Pleasant Bay East Pumping Station in the amount of $32,000 and authorize the town administrator to execute. We're joined this evening by Jeff Gregg of GHD in lieu of Mark Drainville. Jeff drew the short straw within GHD.
Good evening.
Good evening. I guess I'm here to answer questions on the additional scope of services. I don't know, Joe, was there a desire for me to go through the, walk through how we
Yeah,
got
I
here?
think we'll work through Madam Chair
Yeah,
to
the
see what-
reduction in, yeah, so the consensus of the board was to ask if there was any way to be able to reduce that overall cost, and it looks like it came down.
Yep.
But, you know,
Yeah,
probably
so-
not as much as others would like it to, but,
So, the history of the reason we're here is that the state modified their regs. We consulted with the water department and Dan Pelletier first and said, how do we want to handle this? Then we talked with the plumbing inspector for the town, met with them to get an idea of which ones we would seek a waiver for. We determined that we needed to have we needed to show hardship, and cost is not a hardship, and that's the first thing that they say at every one of their meetings. And they underline it, and if they could put it in bold and run it as a marquee across the screen, they would do that. So we were able to identify hardships for some of the pumping stations. We were able to identify that we were below a threshold. They actually changed some of their guidance on where anything that's smaller than, I believe, 100 square feet wouldn't require that. And then we determined one of our station locations was just too big, and we couldn't identify a hardship associated with it. So, and that's the Pleasant Bay East pumping station location. Because we'd have water, we're building a sewer, so we're gonna have sewer. The issue is that the site is set a little lower than the road, and we were filling in some of that area and grading it out. And we were trying to keep that footprint obviously as small as possible, because there are still abutters to let's say the west and to the north. And we decided that we wanted to try to keep that small, and we put the generator behind the building. And now that we have to add a bathroom, we had to move the generator to the opposite side or we will have to move the generator to the opposite side of the access way. We will have to design the quote-unquote collection system from the bathroom, the floor drains, back to the collection system. We're gonna have to regrade the site further. We have to then go through and we have to have structural, architectural, HVAC, plumbing. All the trades have to design their piece for this small room, and I understand the angst and concern. That's just kind of where we are. So to add the bathroom, and we're trying to keep that to the extent practical. We also understand that it's an hourly project, so we're just trying to amend so that we have the scope in there. And if we're able to do it efficiently and actually get through the project and the contractor finishes sooner, then there's the possibility that we're not going to use the rest of our budget, but right now we don't have the scope. And if something changes during construction, we also don't want to be in a position where, we're not able to, get paid for those services, I guess. So that's kind of the where we are with that process. We had some construction phase services in there. We removed that from the costs and reduced some of the design cost. But because we have to do that and still prepare a package that the contractor can then give us an estimate on and the like, that's where those dollars came from.
okay,
So,
thank you. I'll go, Michael, I think you wanted to have this, and
Great explanation, Jeff, and thank you for being here. I
No
still look
problem.
at that bill and
Trust
I
me,
got a lot
I,
to say about the state. Pete started tonight, but I think I'll let it go at this point. But it's interesting that they just continue to cost communities money and flip-flop their positions. And
I hate to say it, I sat through a couple of the meetings and, you know, they have their requirements and, you know, and it's not for me to judge any of that stuff. I just knew that this was not going, we would have been spending money there again to go through the process to actually seek a waiver and get it rejected and then still be back
they're
at this.
attempting to run in a deficit and get all the towns too. They're doing a great job. Just didn't read that goal.
On the flip side, I will say that we were able to get variances for other places and not have to do this at all the locations. So they're, you know, we were able to go through that process, so.
I appreciate your work. Thank you.
Jeff, did you have anything?
I don't. Thank you for being here.
Don?
No, but I'd love to be invited to the ribbon cutting.
You may get the passcode.
Yeah, really.
No, I greatly appreciate your time and sitting through this evening's meeting, but as you know, can appreciate sitting there when the townsfolk hear this type of number just to design it, never mind build it, they just kind of gulp because they'd all love to invest $32,000 into their bathroom at home.
Trust me, I understand completely.
Absolutely. So, but we appreciate the explanation.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry to keep you here.
No, that's quite all right. No, it's, I'm glad I was able to hear and answer your questions and, you know, it's no problem. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere yet, you gotta see how it ends.
Oh, yeah?
It ends.
You might want to get out of Dodge.
Madam Chair, I move that we vote to approve a change order with GHD Inc. for the Phase 3 sewer extension project to include a bathroom at Pleasant Bay East Pumping Station in the amount of $32,000 and authorize town administrator to execute.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
Slow second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0.
No, I'm opposed.
Oh, did you say no? I'm sorry. So 4-1.
I'm going to say what Don said earlier, because everyone else was voting for it, I'm going to vote no.
There you go.
Send the statement.
Thank you very much. I
So
appreciate
noted.
it.
Thank you, Michael.
At least you didn't screw up and vote aye in the first place.
I'm of two minds about
You know, there was a very clear point that this meeting took a turn for the worst.
About 6 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
Thank God Matt was able to isolate where that came from, so.
Anyway, so Madam Chair, as I was able to update you and one of the other members, I would ask that you hold on item A, based on new information we received from the prospective vendor.
Yep.
Or take no action, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, so we'll take no action.
Item B, we were endeavoring to have this in front of you with the expectation it would have been executed by the first party. It has not yet, so same situation, item B. We would ask you to yield on that in the short term.
Okay.
So
Madam
then-
Chair,
Go, yep, go ahead.
if I may on that one, and I did reach out to the town administrator, but I want to share with the rest of the board. The person that's purchasing that land noticed encroachments, or what he believes, on both sides. I think it would be on the town administrator ultimately, if the survey was done and it said it, the town's gonna have to take some sort of action before we transfer this lot. Correct?
So on both sides of the two lots?
Sounds like it, allegedly, is the right word to say.
Oh, okay.
So the update is, regulatory staff went out to the site. One side has already been cleared, and the second side is in the process of being cleared.
It's in the process of making contact with that owner.
However, the town understands fully our property as we sell it, so we won't hesitate to take whatever actions are necessary.
Okay. So that will come back when,
As soon as they sign it.
okay.
Yep.
And then item C.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that we vote to approve a contract with Woodard and Curran, Inc. in the amount of $90,000 for MS4 stormwater 7-year permit compliance.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. 5-0. We did D, so I want to E.
Madam Chair.
Yeah. I thought
Thank you,
were
Madam
making a
Chair.
motion.
No, I don't want to make a motion. Actually, I am off-put. I don't know how long it's going to take to get this through their heads. This is the pro forma contract that the CPC sends out every year to everybody. Condition 2A talks about work on the project must commence within 6 months from the first day of the fiscal year following town meeting vote to appropriate funds for the project. And a commencement date has to be within 3 years. And the presumption is that they're going to pull the money back. I have said before, and I will say it again, the purpose of the money is actually unknown except generically when it's requested, because the idea of the whole trust construct is to jump on something in between town meetings where you can't get an appropriation, and it is for that purpose. It's up to the trust to decide during the course of the year if they want to allocate money to rental assistance as opposed to building. But this term is completely unenforceable, and they have no right to pull the money back except by vote of town meeting. And I don't see that happening. So I really object to this. A year in and year out, this thing keeps coming back like that for the trust, and it's completely inappropriate.
Understood. Joe?
First, let me lead with staff agrees. The earth didn't move, but yes, staff agrees.
I felt it move.
And to further that, as the chair knows, Community Preservation Committee, through the chair and staff resource, reached out to the chair and staff saying that there were 2 outstanding agreements that have yet to be executed. The other one, as I understand it, is a third-party, non-government entity, which we would be waiting for them to execute. Then it would come back to you folks on behalf of the town. But I have argued as town administrator, in this instance, building on the reasons that member Howell had just said, the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust is a town entity. No other town entity or department is required to sign one of these.
Right.
Rather, the practice has been that the town acknowledges the requirements of the CPC committee for all projects, but we have, I think in many instances, not agreed to, I believe it's 19 conditions, depending upon the department or the project. And your colleague, I think, is spot on. The town would not agree that condition number 2 should be a condition upon the trust.
Right.
So this is before you because staff has been directed to present it to the board for your consideration and evaluation.
So I guess, back to, we had this conversation last year. I remember this now, in terms of.
Every year.
Yeah, but I mean, I just remember we went through this in the last round of all of this, and I guess the question is, why are we signing this agreement?
No one's made a motion to do so.
So I guess that's the point, is that, I mean, we're not required to sign this.
More to the point, the whole purpose of the trust is to aggregate assets to be able to do something.
Right.
So there is nothing that would presuppose that you'd be giving money back to what end?
But
I mean, it's unlike even the town getting money, because normally that's constricted to, you can only spend it for that purpose. This is, whatever is under the aegis of the trust, they have the ability to use that money during the course of the year as a CPC grant. That's the way it always should have
But
been.
didn't CPC then push back about saying that they didn't want to give us the money then? I can't remember. Didn't they say that?
Well, we have the bully pulpit because we appoint their members, and if it comes to that, I'm willing to not vote for some people and change the dynamic, because this cannot keep going on. We're not giving the money back. We just had a conversation about building more affordable housing earlier. So this is insulting. You have 3 years, you got to give the money back. We haven't even been able to build anything on the Marceline property yet, and it's been more than 3 years. So what does that mean? We give them the money back?
Right. No, I know.
Madam Chair, have you had an opportunity to speak to the chair of CPC?
No, I will call him.
I think it would be great if
I'll
there
call
was some
Dave, yeah.
communication rather than just brushing this off. There obviously is a reason they want this done.
Yeah, and I can't
Maybe we
remember.
Maybe we can make sense of it.
I feel like there was a reason last year, so that's why, I'll call Dave Nixon.
I agree, and I voted against it last time, so I wouldn't vote for it tonight, but if it's important to them, we should at least communicate.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. I'll follow up with Dave Nixon on it. All right, so now, Town Administrator's Report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, a few contracts to report. As I get to them, I just will advise that the town's contract with Markham, AKA Powers and Sullivan, has already been executed. They're already working on it. I believe at some point they'll be reaching out potentially through either board member or chair directly or staff, that they're first looking to meet with the CPC, and then they might have a need to come before the select board as part of their special audit, but that has been executed and underway. Then we have contracts related to department projects. So the first one is fiscal year 2025 vehicle purchases, specifically this is a Harley Davidson unit or motorcycle for the police department. So this was related to Article 18 under the annual town meeting, under capital. The dollar amount in question here, there was $219,000 appropriated, but it was an estimated cost of $15,000 because what we're paying for is the lease buyout. I think I've generally captured that. And then separately, we have the contract for the Walk of Remembrance at Evergreen Cemetery. I will tell you that the cemetery director was hoping to be here this evening. I believe there is a ceremonial start to the project tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at Evergreen Cemetery. So the contract in question was for Lawrence Lynch. This is technically considered under procurement laws to be a construction project of non-building. Excuse me. So the town did this contract under Chapter 3039M, and it was $55,000 from the 2024 annual town meeting. The actual cost that came in was $42,896. Last but not least, I believe this might have been CPC-related funds. An additional contract relates to the Department of Public Works, and it was a contract for repairs to what is equipment known as a surf rake. The interesting element here is that this was a sole source procurement. Under Chapter 30B, we have to express why it is sole source, and that's because the part in question is only made by the vendor that we purchased from, because it was their original equipment. So the surf rake replacement, which is a beach cleaner, was in the amount of $19,863.75. And that went to H. Barber and Sons, who does the repairs for the demonstrator surf rake.
Thank you. Anything else?
Sorry, looking at my notes, I believe I'm done.
Okay. Select Board members report. Pete?
Actually, if I could, just a quick question to the town administrator
Oh,
on
sure.
his report. So on the police department, Harley Davidson lease buyout, which I agree with, but, so that's coming from the 2024 town meeting article. I believe the chief stated the other day that there was going to be a third cruiser purchased out of that. I assume, even with this expenditure, there'll be enough for that third vehicle to be purchased?
If I may, we've already purchased 2 vehicles off of the 219, and then this is the third item that they identified at the town meeting to purchase for this, $219,000. They will have money left over within this article.
Okay, so this was actually the third item listed?
Yes.
All right, I don't know why I thought he had mentioned the detective's cruiser, but nonetheless, thank you for that clarification. Other than that, nothing else, Madam Chair.
Okay. Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two things. I've spoken with Jeff about this. I just want to make sure that the office can send out tomorrow Sean's latest priced out list relating to Brooks Academy to all of the people who had gotten the invitation to the meeting so that they can look it over before they actually have to sit and read it.
Yes, as I understood the assignment, excuse me, where I'm providing with Sean all the documentation that we have.
Yep.
As I understood it through member Handler. I believe it accomplishes what you've stated tonight,
Okay,
including some munis updates on fund balances.
terrific.
We hope to send that out in the morning.
And secondarily, I mean, I'm not trying to stir the pot, but we had a meeting on October 30th where every single part of it came to us via email that day, which meant that the public never got to see any of that. And I'd really like to have a created bucket, just like everything else on our meetings, where there's uploaded backup to any documentation that we receive so that the public actually gets the same opportunity. That's it.
Jeff?
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations to Monomoy Field Hockey for a great run. To be one of the last two teams playing at the end of a season is remarkable. So they did a heck of a job, and congratulations to all of them.
Thank you. Michael?
Just administration, if you could check Housing Committee on the website. They have agendas posted right through. The last minutes that are posted on that website are 2023, March, I believe. Going back and reading their agendas, they voted minutes in 2024, so they're someplace. But given all the housing discussions that we're having, minutes of the Housing Committee would be important. And then, Madam Chair, next week, just a reminder on the agenda, if you can, the wastewater project
Yes,
coordinator.
that's going on.
Thank you, that's it.
And I just want to say that it's a week ago tonight that 2 young lives were saved, and I think we, celebrated that this evening, and I just think, a lot can change in the drop of an eye, and we're lucky to have such great police and fire in our community, and I'm incredibly grateful.
That we are.
And that's it. Can I get a
Move to
motion?
adjourn.
Thank you. Who's somebody?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.